Chapter 753. Those top powerhouses had a tacit understanding and agreement, so the development of the Huamin did not meet with any resistance on the surface. Although there were other powerhouses and factions that tried to obstruct them in the dark, it was difficult for them to succeed and had little effect on the Huamin. The Huamin had been established for less than 10,000 years, but they had already absorbed more than 100 heaven-reaching powerhouses. Among them, 15 were in the late stage of heaven-reaching, and 2 were at the peak of the late stage. As for the sage god cultivators, there were already more than 10,000 of them. The higher one's cultivation, the better the treatment they could enjoy in the Huamin. Most importantly, the master of Hua Gate was always able to take out some treasures that could move the hearts of heaven-reaching late-stage powerhouses. These treasures included magic treasures, pills, cultivation methods, and cultivation resources, and this was something that the other large and small forces did not have. More and more powerhouses came after hearing the news. Many factions thought that the Huamin would not be able to take in more powerhouses. After all, how could a new faction have enough wealth to maintain itself? But to the disappointment of many factions, no matter how many powerhouses came, the Huamin would welcome them with open arms. Xiao Yu didn't know about the various powers, but he would take all of the mid and late heavenspan cultivators who had joined the Magnificent Society, as well as those who were at the peak of the late heavenspan realm. Xiao Yu would take them to see the Magnificent Society's treasure storehouse, and when they came out, they would be very satisfied. As for what was in the treasury, those powerhouses naturally would not reveal the Huamin's secrets. But it was obvious that the Huamin were very rich, although no one knew why the Huamin were so rich. The Huamin's overall size and strength were catching up to the Sage Army. If the Huamin also had a top powerhouse like the Sage Emperor, they would catch up to or even surpass the Sage Army sooner or later. The Holy Army was very powerful, but the rules of the Holy Army were very strict. Cultivators of the Holy Army didn't receive much income or rewards, but once they committed a crime, they would be severely punished. This was actually the most important reason why many experts who didn't like to be restricted found it difficult to join the Holy Army, but this didn't exist in the Hua sect. Xiao Yu firmly believed that the Huamin were strong enough, and the Huamin's cultivators were treated well enough. Naturally, the Huamin's cultivators would be incomparably loyal and give them a sense of belonging, so they would not easily betray them. Xiao Yu also asked Miao Ying to choose a few absolutely loyal and reliable cultivators from the Huamin who had already joined the Huamin side. They were to stabilize the management of the Huamin. The so-called absolute loyalty and reliability referred to the cultivators who had sworn an oath with their souls that they would never betray Huamin, using them as the backbone to support the great edifice of Huamin. In addition to receiving more generous treatment, these loyal cultivators would also have the opportunity to enter the Primal Chaos Catalog to cultivate. The invasion of the evil demons was inevitable. In order to protect themselves, the Huamin had to use all means to become strong. In any case, these cultivators had already made a soul oath. As long as they had the thought of betraying the Huamin or revealing the secrets of the Huamin, their souls would immediately scatter. Xiao Yu did not have to worry about them revealing the secrets. The Huamin did not force the cultivators in the sect to make a soul oath of absolute loyalty. However, the cultivators who made the soul oath would not only be treated well, but their cultivation speed would also be extremely fast. The Huamin's treasure house would also provide as much help as possible for their cultivation. This would also entice the other cultivators in the sect to make a soul oath. The Primal Chaos Spectrum's 10,000 times faster flow of time had actually become a machine for powerhouses. The effect might not be obvious in a short period of time, but as time passed, the Huamin's unique advantage would become more and more obvious. The number of Huamin powerhouses would also increase, and the cultivation speed of the Huamin's cultivators would be 10,000 times faster than the other great powers. 1 or 2 times faster was already very shocking, but 10,000 times faster was simply unimaginable to the other cultivators and organizations. The reason why he wanted to rapidly produce a large number of powerhouses was to defend against the demons. In reality, Xiaolingyu had another plan in mind. There was one more important thing he had yet to accomplish on Skirich Holy Island, and that was to rescue Anya. It would be very difficult to rescue Anya based on his own improvement alone. Saber 9 was already standing at the peak of Skirich Holy Island. He was only one step away from ascending to the upper realm. Even with Xiaolingyu's improvement, he could only be on par with Saber 9 at most. There was no way he could defeat Saber 9. If he wanted to defeat Saber 9 without any suspense, he would need to be an immortal-level powerhouse. However, an immortal-level powerhouse would not be able to stay in the heavenly realm for long. Therefore, Xiaolingyu had to find another way. Currently, Skirich Holy Island was in the calm before the storm. All the organizations and powerhouses had given up on fighting among themselves and focused on improving their own abilities and those of the organizations they belonged to. On one hand, Xiaolingyu was waiting for the Huamin to become more powerful. On the other hand, he continued to bring Ling to search for treasures. As for his own cultivation, Xiaolingyu was still clueless at the moment. It would take too long to cultivate on his own. It would be better for him to search for treasures. Who knew? He might be able to find other opportunities. Tens of thousands of years had passed. The Huamin's abilities had quietly become so powerful that it was unimaginable. On one hand, the continuous influx of Skirich Holy Island's original Skirich powerhouses was one thing. On the other hand, the cultivators who had entered the chaos spectrum to cultivate had spent hundreds of millions of years in there. They would occasionally go to the light screens to comprehend, so naturally, they had improved greatly. Apart from a portion of cultivators who failed to break through to the next realm and died, most of the sage god cultivators entered the primal chaos spectrum and used the resources in the magnificent sex treasury to successfully advance to the Heaven Ascension stage, and Heaven Ascension stage experts would advance to the next realm. The Huamin now had close to 2,000 Skirich powerhouses. This number far exceeded the Saint army. However, only the upper echelons of the Huamin knew about this. If news of this spread outside, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Xiaolingyu did not plan to hide anything. The rise of the Huamin was inevitable. The Huamin's great strength would be exposed to everyone sooner or later. After some adjustments, he left the Huamin's encampment with 1,000 Skirich powerhouses. The Myriad Swords Mountain was where the ancient peak way of the sword expert, the sword ancestor, cultivated. The sword ancestor had ascended long ago, while the Myriad Swords Mountain was where his disciples cultivated. The sword ancestor had many disciples, but only Saber 9 was still on Skirich Saint Island. Naturally, the Myriad Swords Mountain had become the sword ancestor's territory. The sword ancestor had used tens of thousands of swords of varying quality to set up a sword formation on the Myriad Swords Mountain. It was extremely powerful. It was used to protect the Myriad Swords Mountain, as well as his disciples. It was precisely because of the existence of this extremely powerful sword formation that the sword ancestor's disciples could safely exist on Skirich Saint Island for so long. Otherwise, with their arrogant tempers, they would have been annihilated long ago. After all, their lineage had too few cultivators. Although every one of them was a powerhouse, as the saying went, a fierce tiger could not defeat a pack of wolves. The Myriad Swords Mountain could be said to be a forbidden area on Skirich Saint Island. For countless years, no one had dared to invade the Myriad Swords Mountain, but on this day, it was suddenly surrounded. There were more than 1,000 cultivators surrounding the Myriad Swords Mountain, and all of them were Skirich powerhouses. This matter immediately shook the entire Skirich Saint Island. Very soon, everyone found out that the ones who dared to surround the Myriad Swords Mountain were the Huamin, who had just risen to prominence on Skirich Saint Island. However, everyone was extremely shocked. How could the Huamin possess 1,000 Skirich powerhouses in such a short period of time? Everyone was also very curious as to why the Huamin had surrounded the Myriad Swords Mountain in such a domineering manner and openly made an enemy out of top powerhouse. However, Everyone could also tell that even if the Hua men did not have any top powerhouses themselves, they definitely possessed the ability to challenge top powerhouses. No matter how powerful a top powerhouse was, being able to easily kill a peak late-stage Skirich powerhouse or take on 10 or 100 people on their own, the difference between an ordinary cultivator and a top powerhouse could not be made up with numbers. However, when the number of top powerhouses reached a certain level, the top powerhouses could only flee at the mere sight of them. For example, now that Shaolin Yu had surrounded the Myriad Swords Mountain with 1,000 Skirich powerhouses, Saber 9 did not dare to show himself. No matter how powerful Saber 9 was, as long as he dared to show himself, Shaolin Yu would give the order, and the 1,000 Skirich powerhouses would definitely be able to kill Saber 9 instantly. The Myriad Swords Mountain sword formation had already been activated. Countless sharp swords hovered high above the Myriad Swords Mountain. Waves of fierce and powerful auras surged out continuously, striking fear into the hearts of those who looked at them. Senior Saber 9, I respect you for standing at the pinnacle of the God Realm and call you Senior. However, I advise you to let my wife, Anya, out of the Myriad Swords Mountain. I'll leave with everyone immediately, and we'll mind our own business from now on. If Senior insists on being stubborn, I'll have no choice but to give the order to attack. After surrounding the Myriad Swords Mountain for 3 days, Shaolin Yu shouted loudly, Break this sword formation first if you're so capable. Although Saber 9 sounded very confident, as a top powerhouse who had made a name for himself for a long time, he was already showing weakness by holding up in the sword formation and not daring to show himself in the face of a powerful enemy. However, even if it were any other top powerhouse, they would definitely not dare to face 1,000 Skirich powerhouses alone. All right, then I'll have to offend you. Shaolin Yu did not waste his breath. He immediately waved behind him. The reason why he was being polite to Saber 9 was that Anya was still in the Myriad Swords Mountain. After all, he could not afford to offend Saber 9 too much. Upon seeing Shaolin Yu's gesture, the 1,000-odd Skirich powerhouses immediately attacked at the same time. Beams of divine light, god talismans, spirit treasures, and spells shot toward the Myriad Swords Mountain. Streams of light filled the sky, interweaving like a net. They surrounded the Myriad Swords Mountain in an instant, and a dazzling radiance bloomed around the Myriad Swords Mountain in the next instant. Rumbling explosions rang out continuously. The Myriad Swords Mountain shook, and the ground trembled as well. The countless sharp swords that enveloped the Myriad Swords Mountain let out a metallic hum. Countless sword gleams gathered to form a circle of sword energy, blocking all of the attacks. However, the radiance of the countless sharp swords dimmed slightly. Naturally, there would be more than one round of attacks. In the next hour, the 1,000-odd Hua men's Skirich powerhouses attacked the Myriad Swords Mountain continuously. Finally, they broke through the sword energy. However, the sword formation's main purpose was to attack, not defend. Therefore, Shaolin Yu did not order the Hua men's powerhouses to charge at the Myriad Swords Mountain head-on. Instead, they surrounded the Myriad Swords Mountain from afar and continued attacking from a distance. Chapter 754. The rise of the Hua men was destined to bring trouble to many major organizations and powerhouses. However, no one had expected the Hua men to use a peak powerhouse to establish their dominance. That was right. From everyone's perspective, the Hua men were establishing their dominance by attacking the 10,000 Swords Mountain. They were warning the other peak powerhouses not to make enemies out of the Hua men. The Hua men now possessed the ability to kill peak powerhouses. Saber 9 was extremely upset and furious, but there was nothing he could do. He and many other peak powerhouses had never imagined that Shaolin Yu would be able to turn an organization into such a powerful one in such a short period of time. To prevent the sword formation that his master had left behind from being destroyed in his own hands, Saber 9 could only compromise with Shaolin Yu and allow Anya to leave the 10,000 Swords Mountain alone. Saber 9 did not come out. While he was enraged, He had the urge to kill Anya to vent his anger. However, he was a peak powerhouse after all. He knew that if he killed Anya, Xiaoling Yu would definitely go crazy. If that happened, the thousands of divine mastery powerhouses outside the 10,000 Swords Mountain would most likely raze it to the ground. Of course, Saber 9 could not bear to kill Anya. After all, Anya was his official disciple and a sword Dao genius whom he admired very much. Over the years, he had taught Anya with all his heart. He wanted Anya to become a powerful sword Dao powerhouse before he ascended and take over the 10,000 Swords Mountain. Anya walked out of the 10,000 Swords Mountain's sword formation alone. She was dressed in white and carried a long sword on her back with one hand. She looked valiant and heroic. When she walked toward Xiaoling Yu, she seemed rather surprised. Although Anya had improved rather quickly under Saber 9's careful nurturing and had now become a late-stage Holy God Sword Dao powerhouse, she had not been happy all these years. Her improvement in ability could not compare to her longing for Xiaoling Yu. She had once wanted Xiaoling Yu to save her. However, when she realized how powerful Saber 9 was and how powerful the 10,000 Swords Mountain sword formation was, she did not want Xiaoling Yu to save her. She thought it was too dangerous. Even the peak experts of Skyspan Saint Island would not dare to barge into the 10,000 Swords Mountain. My husband had better not risk his life for me. That was what Anya thought. However, deep down, she wanted Xiaoling Yu to become an unparalleled powerhouse that even top powerhouses feared and to take her away from Saber 9. Xiaoling Yu, on the other hand, had not become an unparalleled powerhouse. However, he had become the leader of a major organization, leading over 1,000 immortal ascension powerhouses to surround the 10,000 Swords Mountain and force Saber 9 to compromise. This was something that Anya had never expected. However, no matter what, the outcome was the same. When Anya saw Xiaoling Yu, she was overjoyed and excited. In a flash, she threw herself into Xiaoling Yu's arms. Xiaoling Yu hugged Anya tightly and said gently in her ear, "Don't worry. No one can take you away from me in the future. You're almost an immortal ascension powerhouse, yet you're still crying like a child. You're so useless." He wiped away Anya's tears and brought her back to the Huamen. There were over 1,000 immortal ascension powerhouses following them. Xiaoling Yu and the 1,000 immortal ascension powerhouses of the Huamen returned to the Huamen with great fanfare. Along the way, they attracted the attention of countless cultivators who watched them from afar. Naturally, these cultivators would spread the news after they returned, and the Huamen's reputation would only grow. As soon as they returned to the Huamen's encampment, the Mahamayuri King and the other Earth powerhouses arrived. Brother Zhao's generosity is too shocking. Even the Mahamayuri King, who had been calm all this while, exclaimed after witnessing the Huamen's various feats. "This should be even more impressive than the Sacred Army, right?" Jiangshang said, while stroking his beard. "If Brother Xiao has the ability of a top powerhouse, he'll trample the Sacred Army under his feet sooner or later." However, even now, if the Sacred Army were to attack the Huamen, they would return in defeat even if they tried their best. "I'm afraid only immortal-level powerhouses would dare to barge into the 10-terminal formation," Shun Gongbao added. "Haha, although the formation is powerful, it can't withstand the attacks of countless powerhouses. The 10,000 Swords Mountain's sword formation is very powerful, but won't last long against the combined attacks of 1,000 immortal ascension powerhouses." Xiaoling Yu shook his head and laughed. "Your Huamen is different from the 10,000 Swords Mountain. The 10,000 Swords Mountain only has Saber 9, but there are close to 2,000 immortal ascension powerhouses guarding the Huamen. They won't just stand by and watch the 10-terminal formation get attacked," Jiangshang said in satisfaction. "It seems that some of the things we've prepared for Brother Xiao this time are a little redundant." The Mahamayuri King said self-deprecatingly after witnessing the rich collection in the Huamen's treasure vault. Previously, he had led the Earth powerhouses to a treasure trove that only he knew about when he left. He wanted to open the treasure trove and provide financial support to Xiaoling Yu's great organization. However, The treasures that the Mahamayuri king and the other earth powerhouses obtained were insignificant compared to the collection in the Hua Min's treasure vault. After all, they had only obtained one treasure trove, while Shaolin Yu had already cleared hundreds of treasure troves. Since Brother Xiao is on the right track, we can rest assured. The Mahamayuri king was very satisfied with Shaolin Yu's performance. However, he then added, "Brother Xiao, you'll have to work harder too. Once that demon wakes up, all your efforts will be for naught." After giving instructions and planning, the Mahamayuri king and the other earth powerhouses left the Hua Min's encampment. They had to gather all the earth cultivators as soon as possible and form a powerful organization to help the Hua Min. To ensure that the Hua Min and the earth cultivators would not be too affected by the demon's invasion, Shaolin Yu began to invite the Hua Min disciples who were willing to make a soul oath into the chaos spectrum to cultivate. This was to continuously create powerhouses. The Hua Min cultivators gradually realized how powerful the Hua Min were. They also realized that the master of the Hua Min, Shaolin Yu, had heaven-defying means. In order to rapidly improve their cultivation and to have the strength to protect themselves during the demon's invasion, more and more of them were willing to make a soul oath. The chaos spectrum's 10,000 times faster flow of time became the guarantee for the rapid rise and continuous growth of the Hua Min. Ling Er's search for the treasures on Tongtian's sacred island became the Hua Min's reliance to rapidly accumulate cultivation resources and expand their wealth. Even though many major forces had realized the threat of the Hua Min, they could not do anything to the Hua Min now. However, many big shots of the major forces comforted themselves in their hearts that the Hua Min would suffer great losses during the demon's invasion. After the demon's invasion, the Hua Min might not be so powerful. However, no one could predict how powerful the Hua Min would be when the demon's invasion happened. Other than the thousands of Hua Min experts surrounding the 10,000 Swords Mountain, nothing major happened on Tongtian's sacred island. Almost all the cultivators were waiting for the demon's invasion. Of course, there were also some cowardly cultivators who quietly left Tongtian's sacred island. Not every cultivator had the courage to fight the demon's invasion. However, most of the cultivators understood that once Tongtian's sacred island was occupied by the demon's invasion, they would no longer be able to obtain the divine spirit stone. They would also lose the possibility of reaching the immortal realm forever. Therefore, more cultivators were willing to fight to the death. Shaolin Yu also wanted to cultivate to the immortal realm before the demon, called Li Jia, in his body woke up. Therefore, when the treasures in the Hua Min's treasury were enough to sustain the Hua Min for hundreds of millions of years, he also entered the chaos spectrum and began to work hard to cultivate and comprehend cultivation methods. If he wanted to reach the immortal realm, he had to first complete the cultivation of the chaos self. Then, he had to create the 10th revolution cultivation method. The key to the cultivation of the chaos self was to use one's own body as heaven and earth and create an inner world in one's body. This way, one would be able to gather the power of heaven and earth in one's body, allowing one to possess the power of heaven and earth. Because none of his ancestors had reached the 9th revolution, he had no experience in the cultivation of the chaos self. He had to rely on himself to figure it out and try it out based on the description of the cultivation method. The only way for a cultivator to form a heaven and earth in their body was to turn their inner space into an inner world. In other words, they had to constantly expand their dantian and form a world that contained the power of heaven and earth and natural laws. It was also a world with life and all things. As for how this world was formed, there was a method in the 9 revolution chaos self-cultivation method. This method was actually the chaos nature principle that Shaolin Yu had comprehended in the past. Chaos turned into yin and yang, and then yin and yang gave birth to all things. During Shaolin Yu's cultivation back then, he had seen countless times how the universe changed from a piece of chaos to a prosperous world. He was very familiar with the formation of a world and had seen it over and over again. However, creating a new world in one's body was not as simple as looking at it. In order to obtain this heaven-defying method, Xiao Yu began to look through the jade slips that he had obtained from the treasure trove. He wanted to integrate the experiences of various sects, hoping to find the most reliable method. Needless to say, after reading the many cultivation experiences left behind by his predecessors, Xiao Yu was finally enlightened. After some more research, he asked all the cultivators to leave the chaos spectrum and then left the Hua men's residence. Before he left, Xiao Yu told his 3 wives that he was going to undergo a very important cultivation. If anything happened, he asked them not to worry about him and to cultivate well in the future. Xiao Yu did not even bring his foodie with him. If not for the fact that he did not know how to leave the chaos spectrum behind, and if not for the fact that his friends and family could not be recognized by the chaos spectrum, he would have even left the chaos spectrum behind. The Hua men were now so powerful that they did not have to fear any forces in the God realm. Any powerhouse, his friends and family should not be in too much danger in the future. There was no telling when the evil spirit Li Jia would wake up. Xiao Yu had no other choice but to try his best to improve himself. However, if this attempt failed, the evil spirit Li Jia would most likely die with him. On a barren island in the Tongtianyi Sea, Xiao Yu carved out a simple cave abode and used his powerful divine sense to scare away all the sea creatures within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. Only then did he calm himself down and enter a state of cultivation. Suddenly, one day, with the small island as the center, the natural forces within a radius of tens of thousands of miles began to madly converge on Xiao Yu's body. The natural forces, along with the chaotic divine power released by the chaos divine infant, constantly washed over Xiao Yu's dantian and expanded it. Chapter 755. In the beginning, a cultivator's dantian was an acupoint that was inflated by true qi, forming an important place that could carry power. However, as a cultivator's cultivation continued to improve, the acupoint had long been transformed into a space of nothingness by the cultivator's mysterious technique. This was the cultivator's inner space. The inner space could continuously expand as a cultivator's cultivation improved, and the amount of energy it could carry would also increase. Upon reaching the heavenly ascension stage, the inner space of a cultivator could already be said to be vast and boundless and extremely stable. However, if it was compared to the true universe, it would appear to be too insignificant. Not to mention a true universe, it was even inferior to a small galaxy in the cultivation world. However, there is almost nothing else in this inner space other than the cultivator's own nascent soul and magic treasures. No matter how big the inner space was, it was just a container. Now, Xiao Yu was borrowing the power of nature from the God world to expand the inner space of his dantian. In reality, this was only the first step of his experiment. Fortunately, the quality of his body was extremely high and could withstand the power of nature invading his body. Otherwise, he would not be able to proceed with the simplest step. The formless power of nature continuously rushed into his dantian, causing Xiao Yu's inner space, which had never been deliberately expanded, to rapidly expand. First, it was comparable to a galaxy. Under Xiao Yu's thousands of years of hard work, it expanded to be comparable to a galaxy. If he did not need the help of the power of nature from the God world, Xiao Yu could actually cultivate in the chaos spectrum. This way, the time needed would be shortened by 10,000 times. This expansion process could be completed in just a few months. The expansion of the inner space of his dantian could be considered to have come to an end. If he wanted to expand it even a little more, Xiao Yu would not be able to withstand it. The impact on the inner space would be too great. With his current cultivation realm, he could not mobilize so much power of nature to help. The next step was also very crucial. That was to convert the chaos divine power in his body into chaos origin force. Chaos origin force was the key energy to form a universe. It contained all kinds of origin force and could also be divided into all kinds of origin force. It even possessed the formless power of space and time. True chaos origin power was the essence of a world. It was also the support for the continued development of a god realm. Chaos origin power existed in every universe, but it was very difficult to find the purest form of it. Chaos origin force was the catalyst for the formation of a world. Once the world was formed, the chaos origin force would have already disintegrated. In order to find the primal chaos origin force, one would need to wander between the various worlds. This was not something that ordinary cultivators could accomplish. At the very least, not even Heaven Ascension stage experts could accomplish this, unless they possessed some sort of heaven-defying magic treasure. Therefore, Xiaoling Yu had to think of a way to obtain this chaos origin power. He had seen this method in a jade slip from a certain treasure trove. In order to cultivate chaos origin force, a cultivator had to cultivate chaos origin force. Xiaoling Yu had this prerequisite. Under the prerequisite of possessing a large amount of high-quality chaos divine power, a cultivator could gather the heaven and earth nature force of the god realm and merge it into their chaos divine power. Then, they could compress it to the extreme to form chaos origin force. When Xiaoling Yu had advanced to the 9th refinement stage, his chaos divine power had been baptized by the heaven and earth nature force. However, the heaven and earth nature force was too special. Under normal circumstances, it would only help Heaven Ascension stage cultivators improve the quality of their skills. It was very difficult for it to truly merge into a cultivator's skills. Now, Xiaoling Yu wanted to merge a large amount of heaven and earth nature force into his chaos divine power. It was already very difficult to accomplish this. If the heaven and earth nature force were to be compressed to the extreme along with his already pure chaos divine power, the difficulty would undoubtedly increase countless times. Since Xiaoling Yu dared to try, he naturally had a way to solve the problem. This method did not rely on any magic treasures or materials. Instead, it relied on the forbidden formation left behind by Liao Zhou. Using a special forbidden formation to forcefully bind the heaven and earth nature force and his chaos divine power together. Then, using the power of the forbidden formation to support the smelting of the chaos primordial fire, he would be able to produce chaos origin force. Although this process might take a long time, it was the only way Xiaoling Yu could do it. The smelting of the chaos origin force took a full 100,000 years. Xiaoling Yu just sat in the cave abode on the deserted island and continued to absorb the heaven and earth nature force. He was not disturbed at all. The heaven and earth nature force fluctuated abnormally. Cultivators below the Heaven Ascension stage did not dare to come close. Even if Heaven Ascension stage cultivators passed by, they would know that there was a powerful cultivator cultivating here. When the Heaven Ascension stage cultivators who passed by guessed Xiaoling Yu's level of cultivation through the fluctuations of the heaven and earth nature force, they would naturally take a detour. The successful smelting of the chaos origin force meant that all of Xiaoling Yu's preparations were complete. The next step was the most dangerous attempt. He wanted to explode the chaos origin force that he had smelted into the chaos origin force in the space of his Dantian. The chaos origin force contained an enormous amount of energy. Once it exploded, the power it could produce was extremely terrifying. Whether Xiaoling Yu's Dantian could withstand it was still unknown. If it could not, Xiaoling Yu's body and soul would be destroyed in an instant. There was no way for him to survive. If he could withstand it, then Xiaoling Yu would have successfully completed this cultivation attempt. He would possess an inner world and reach the peak of the chaos origin stage. Then, he would be able to prepare for the immortal stage. It was precisely because the chaos origin force's explosion was so terrifying that Xiaoling Yu expanded the space in his Dantian to the maximum at the beginning. Even a powerful existence like Xiaoling Yu had spent 100,000 years to smelt the chaos origin force. If it exploded in the space of the cultivation world, it would not be a problem to destroy tens of thousands of galaxies. However, Xiaoling Yu's inner space was as stable as the space of the God realm. It might not be impossible for it to withstand the chaos origin force's explosion, After some serious preparations, Xiao Yu waited for his condition to recover to its peak. Then, he resolutely invited his chaos divine infant out of his dantian and made it float above his head. Since it was the center of his energy, the chaos divine infant could not be too far away from his body during such a crucial period of cultivation. If the cultivation failed, the chaos divine infant would be destroyed along with Xiao Yu. After the chaos divine infant left his body, Xiao Yu let out a long breath of turbid air and detonated the dazzling chaos origin force that was floating in the center of his dantian. Boom! In an instant, an aurora illuminated the vast, empty space in Xiao Yu's dantian. A destructive shockwave swept through the entire space in his dantian in an instant, and then washed away the barriers at the edge of his dantian. In just a breath's time, Xiao Yu already felt that his dantian could not hold on any longer. It's over. It was as if Xiao Yu would disappear from the god realm in the next moment. However, at this moment, a strange energy suddenly surged out and firmly protected Xiao Yu's dantian barrier. That strange energy only appeared for a breath's time, but this extremely short period of time was enough. The reason why the Chaos Origin Force's explosion was so terrifying was because of its short duration of impact. As long as he could endure that short period of time, Xiao Yu would be considered to have passed the danger, and there would not be any more powerful energy impacts later on. After the Chaos Origin Force exploded, it quickly decomposed into yin and yang energy, and then the yin and yang energy evolved into the four symbols, condensing the five elements, forming heaven and earth, and creating nature. Gradually, one planet after another appeared in the vast inner space, and a brilliant star field shone with starlight, revealing its gorgeous outline. After a while, simple life forms began to appear on some of the planets, and those life forms gradually evolved and finally gained intelligence, becoming living creatures. It was a primitive scene of the beginning of chaos. Before Xiao Yu could secretly rejoice, he suddenly realized that he had lost his mental connection with the Chaos Divine Infant. When he raised his head in shock, he discovered that the Chaos Divine Infant was looking at him with an evil smile and said, "You really have too many things that are beyond my expectations. Originally, you had a high chance of reaching the immortal stage before I woke up, but you made a very low-level mistake. Although you obtained 10,000 times faster time in the chaos spectrum, which gave you a huge advantage over other cultivators, you accelerated my awakening by 10,000 times in the chaos spectrum. I've actually woken up a long time ago, and I'm just waiting to see you continue your performance." Although the Chaos Divine Infant's appearance had not changed much, there was an additional ring of blood-red light around it. It was obvious that it was being controlled by an external force. "You're that evil spirit Li Jia?" Xiao Yu was shocked. "That's right." Li Jia nodded and continued. "Actually, that old friend of mine already warned you last time. When he saw you back then, he could tell that I had already woken up. Fortunately, I waited a little longer, or you wouldn't have been able to complete this cultivation. Of course, the reason you were able to complete this cultivation was also thanks to my help. Otherwise, you wouldn't exist anymore. Come, in order to repay me for saving your life, give me your body and soul." Wishful thinking. Xiao Yu refused flatly. "Do you think you can resist? If you resist, this Chaos Divine Infant of yours will explode around you at any time, and you won't be able to escape death," Li Jia sneered. "What's the difference between giving you my body and soul and dying?" Xiao Yu said fearlessly. "If you cooperate, I can let your friends and family go," Li Jia threatened. "I have no reason to believe you," Xiao Yu replied. "If you don't give it to me, I'll have to take it myself. However, you'll definitely regret your choice." Chapter 756. In the next moment, strands of evil and formidable energy invaded his sea of consciousness and surrounded Xiao Yu's golden soul pearl. The 9-colored golden soul bead, which was sparkling and translucent like a glass bead, was wrapped in a circle of blood-red light. Xiao Yu immediately felt his consciousness go into a trance. However, Xiao Yu did not give up resisting. Unfortunately, the chaotic divine infant had already been controlled, and his soul power could not penetrate the golden soul pearl. His resistance was clearly too weak. Give up resisting. I will give this body of yours a power that you can't even imagine. Li Jia's voice reverberated in the depths of Xiao Lingyu's mind. It was like a hypnotic demonic voice that caused Xiao Lingyu's mind to sink. Xiao Lingyu would not give up. He could guess in the depths of his mind that the reason Li Jia wanted him to cooperate with him from the beginning was probably because he was not completely confident that the possession would succeed. Otherwise, Li Jia would not have wasted his breath on him and even threatened him with his friends and family. After all, Li Jia was revived from a remnant soul. Even if that remnant soul had very powerful means and had already recovered for a period of time, its power should be limited. Moreover, Li Jia must have used a lot of energy to resist the impact of the chaotic origin force's explosion to prevent his dantian from exploding. In fact, Li Jia had no choice but to act. Once Xiao Lingyu's dantian exploded, Li Jia would also die with Xiao Lingyu. After all, his remnant soul had already fused with Xiao Lingyu's body. Even experts like the Mahamayuri and Tianzi Liang could not separate them from Xiao Lingyu's body. Unable to resist, he could only wait and see. Xiao Lingyu tried his best to maintain his consciousness and not fall into a daze as he waited for Li Jia to gradually invade his body and soul. Even Xiao Lingyu's body, which was comparable to a divine spirit treasure, could only last less than 3 months under the invasion of the blood-colored energy. The blood-colored energy invaded all of Xiao Lingyu's muscles, bones, and flesh, fusing with and changing his body, causing it to gradually become demonic. Under the fierce attack of these 3 months, the blood-colored energy also broke through the defense of Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl and began to invade his soul, memories, and consciousness. When it came to seizing another's body, the most important thing wasn't to control the body. Instead, it was to completely erase the soul, memories, and consciousness of the person being possessed, causing the body to become ownerless. Then, one would have to fill up the golden soul pearl with their own soul, consciousness, and memories. Only then would the person be reborn. In order to obtain the final victory, Li Jia's recovered soul attacked Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl with all its might. After breaking through, it began to invade Xiao Lingyu's soul, memories, and consciousness. In the process of invading, Li Jia inevitably read Xiao Lingyu's soul memories. Xiao Lingyu gradually realized that he could not block Li Jia's soul attack at all. Li Jia's previous level should be far higher than Xiao Lingyu's current level. In desperation, he made up his mind and detonated the golden soul pearl that he could still control. Rather than letting himself be possessed, he would rather die. Even if he died, he would drag Li Jia down with him. Li Jia's soul had been attacking Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl for a long time, so he must be in a weakened state and might not be able to block the self-destruction of the golden soul pearl. Boom! The 9-colored light and the blood-colored light suddenly flashed and then exploded. A spiritual hurricane instantly swept through the entire sea of consciousness. Damn it! Li Jia cursed angrily. Then, in an instant, he drew out all the blood-colored energy that had merged with Xiao Lingyu's body. The blood-colored energy crazily rushed into Xiao Lingyu's sea of consciousness and gathered the soul power that had just exploded. If not for Li Jia's level that was far higher than Xiao Lingyu's when he was alive, he would not have been able to gather the soul power that had exploded. However, Xiao Lingyu's soul self-destruction this time also caused great damage to Li Jia's newly recovered soul. In order not to be destroyed together with Xiao Lingyu, Li Jia even gave up on invading Xiao Lingyu's body. I can still be reborn after occupying his soul. It's just that my soul can't completely merge with his body. It's a pity. After Li Jia muttered to himself, he continued to invade Xiao Lingyu's soul with his heavily injured soul. However, he gradually realized that his soul and Xiao Lingyu's soul had just exploded together. Although they had just gathered together, they had merged together. Li Jia's soul had also become much weaker. Although he could still invade Shaolin Yu's soul, the speed was much, much slower. Brat, you've completely angered me, Li Jia said to Shaolin Yu in his soul. Just show me what you're capable of. Stop talking nonsense. Shaolin Yu replied firmly. I can't do anything to you right now. I can't erase your consciousness and memories. However, I've already occupied most of your soul. You have to follow my will. Although I didn't invade your body, I've already occupied your chaotic divine infant. You don't have the slightest ability to resist. Just wait for me to recover for a while, and I'll destroy you sooner or later. Li Jia said proudly. Don't give me a chance. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Without my cooperation, you won't be able to unleash all my abilities. If I mess with your soul when you're fighting, I'm afraid you won't have it easy either. Shaolin Yu replied with a cold smile. If that's the case, let's make a deal. I won't compromise. Before Li Jia could finish, Shaolin Yu flatly rejected him. Don't forget about your friends and family in the Huamen. With me controlling your body and soul, it'll be very easy for me to kill them. Li Jia threatened. If you dare to touch them, I'll try my best to detonate this golden soul bead when you're fighting. Even if I can't detonate it, my abilities will be limited and my strength will decrease a lot. At most, we'll die together. With a powerhouse like you dying with me, I won't die in vain. Shaolin Yu replied. So, let's make a deal. Although it'll be a loss for me to die with you, it won't be much of a loss if I drag your friends and family down with me. How about this? I won't touch your friends and family, and you don't cause trouble for me at a critical moment. As for who will live and who will die in the end, it'll be up to each of us. How about that? Li Jia suggested. Anyway, as long as you don't push me too far, I won't rush to die. After all, there's still a glimmer of hope. I won't give up so easily. Shaolin Yu said non-committally. Don't worry, I won't touch your friends and family. I won't even touch your Hua men's cultivators. Li Jia said and began to familiarize himself with Shaolin Yu's body and the abilities that Shaolin Yu had mastered. Li Jia had already read Shaolin Yu's soul memories before. Naturally, he could easily grasp everything that Shaolin Yu had mastered. After cultivating alone for 110,000 years, Shaolin Yu returned to the Hua men's residence. In the eyes of Miao Ying and the other Hua men's powerhouses, his return meant that his cultivation, this time, was successful and his strength had improved a lot. However, Miao Ying, Anya, and Qing Xian, who were very familiar with Shaolin Yu, all felt that Shaolin Yu was a little strange after he returned. Shaolin Yu, who was very close to his 3 wives, was very cold to them after he returned. He would often only say a few perfunctory words to them. After staying in the Hua men's residence for a short period of time, Shaolin Yu once again left the Hua men without saying goodbye to any other cultivators. He didn't even bring the foodie who had been accompanying him all this time. 1,000 years later, Shaolin Yu appeared next to the Demon Sealing Tower. The Demon Sealing Tower was now sealed by layers of restrictions and formations set up by the top powerhouses of Skyspan Island. No one could enter it. After arriving, Shaolin Yu casually found a place to sit cross-legged. After waiting for about 30,000 years, the 500 feet tall evil spirit that had been released from the Spine Peninsula also came nearby. Li Jia, your head looks too small. The tall, evil spirit mocked. Size doesn't matter, as long as I'm still alive. At this time, Shaolin Yu was actually Li Jia. This body was already under Li Jia's control, and Shaolin Yu's consciousness was firmly suppressed by Li Jia. It doesn't matter if I'm smaller, but it's better if my divine abilities are weaker. The tall, evil spirit nodded and replied. In terms of divine abilities, you're not much stronger than me. Li Jia shrugged and replied. Do you think the two of us can break this restriction together? The tall, evil spirit asked. If it was in the past, it would be easy. But now, even if we could break it, it would take some time. I reckon that before we could break it, the powerhouses of the God realm would swarm over. Li Jia shook his head and said, This demon sealing tower came out a little too early. If we had recovered before it came out, it wouldn't have been sealed. The tall, evil spirit sighed. It's useless to talk about this. Let's wait for my clan's descendants to cross over. With their help, we'll have enough time to break this restriction and rescue Lord Xiaowang. Li Jia said, "How long will it take?" The tall, evil spirit asked. "I want to see the location of the passage between the two realms. From the situation of the spatial fluctuations, the passage between the two realms will be connected in, at most, 500,000 years." Li Jia replied, "On the way here from the Spine Peninsula, I saw the powerhouses of the God Realm making preparations. Although the strength of the God Realm is far from what it was when we invaded, I'm afraid that our Demon Realm strength is also far from what it was back then. And with the two of us in this state, even if we won't be defeated as easily as last time, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to win." The tall evil spirit wasn't too optimistic. There's no need to fight for victory. As long as we can rescue Lord Xiaowang and smoothly return to the Demon Realm, it'll be fine. Lord Xiaowang's return to the Demon Realm will definitely restore the Demon Realm to its former strength. And the signs of the God Realm's development indicate that they'll become weaker and weaker in the future. Li Jia seemed to be calm as he said, "That's right. After being sealed for so many years, my body and mind are exhausted to the extreme. I really do miss the homeland of the Demon Realm." As the tall, evil spirit spoke, his gaze looked into the distant void, as if he could see through the space-time barrier. Chapter 757. Xiaoling Yu had returned to the Huamin, but her temperament was obviously different from before. She was cold and quiet, and most of the time, she was cultivating in seclusion. In a loft deep in the Huamin's residence, Miao Ying, Qing Xian, Anya, Linger, Yuru, and Jiang Langyue were all gathered around a long table, looking a little depressed. "What's wrong with that guy? Why is he so indifferent to us?" Miao Ying asked curiously. "Did he encounter any problems during his cultivation?" Qing Xian also frowned. "I don't think so. He went out to cultivate for so many years, and before he left, he said that if he didn't succeed, he would meet with misfortune. But now that he's back safely, he must have successfully completed his cultivation. What problem could there be?" Anya continued. "Even if there's a problem, he probably won't hide it from us. If there's anything, he'll definitely tell us. After all, we're family." Miao Ying curled her lips and said. Hearing the words family, Yueru and Jiang Langyue looked a little unnatural. "It's no use guessing blindly. Let's go and ask him together," Qing Xian suggested. "He's meditating in the quiet room. If we go now, won't we disturb him?" Anya was a little worried. "What's there to be afraid of? Will he eat us?" Miao Ying stood up and said, "We're his wives. After he came back from his cultivation, he ignored us and looked cold, as if we've committed some heinous crime. Just thinking about it makes me angry. We have to ask him face to face." "Then let's go and ask him." Anya nodded, as if she felt that it was better to have more people. Miao Ying pulled Yueru and Jiang Langyue with her. As for Linger, she didn't need to be pulled to follow. All the female cultivators in the room went to the quiet room where Xiaoling Yu was meditating. "You have something to say?" Xiaoling Yu asked. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu was still the same Li Jia, so his expression was very calm, without the gentleness he had when facing this group of female cultivators. Just now, everyone was still discussing enthusiastically, but when they were in front of Xiaoling Yu, they didn't know what to say. They couldn't ask him why he wasn't warm to them, could they? "They want to know why you're not as close to them as you used to be," Jiang Lanchong said. Since someone had spoken, they were all staring at Xiaoling Yu, as if they were waiting for an answer. Xiaoling Yu was stunned at first, then he laughed and said, "Ha! Your husband has been too busy recently and neglected all of you." As he spoke, Xiaoling Yu stood up and said, "That's fine. It's best not to rush matters of cultivation. Your husband will accompany you more in the future." With that, Xiaoling Yu pulled Miao Ying into his arms in front of everyone. "Don't forget our agreement." In his soul, Xiaoling Yu reminded Li Jia coldly, "Don't worry, I've seen your memories. I won't touch your 3 wives, but the other women are all very beautiful and have good qualifications. You can't touch them either." Before Li Jia could finish speaking, Xiaoling Yu said firmly, "Ha! In fact, I won't touch them. You know very well that this body hasn't been taken over by me. Although I can control it, it's still essentially yours. Even if I use your body to touch them, it's actually you who's touching them, not me. This body is still yours. Only you can feel all the enjoyment and feelings. It has nothing to do with me at all, Li Jia said with a smile. What Li Jia said was true, but Xiao Lingyu still warned, you can use my body to fight, but you can't use it to do anything to them. Otherwise, you know the consequences. Li Jia replied, don't scare me. Other than your 3 wives, you seem to be interested in all of them. It's just that it's been inconvenient for you to make a move. I can help you. Xiao Lingyu snorted, I don't need your help. Li Jia still insisted, but I've always been very enthusiastic. Xiao Lingyu said angrily, how dare you? Li Jia didn't take it seriously. Of course I dare. After letting go of Miao Ying, Li Jia suddenly smiled at the beauties in the room and said, since everyone is here, I'll make some things clear. I want to take in a few more concubines. This sentence directly shocked all the beauties in the room. They never thought that these words would come out from Xiao Lingyu's mouth so calmly. Miao Ying, Qin Xian, and Anya all had very complicated expressions. They were already Xiao Lingyu's wives. Naturally, they didn't want Xiao Lingyu to have more concubines in their hearts, but they didn't know how to protest. After all, they had accepted each other. Concubines? Then who's your legal wife? Zhang Lanchong asked curiously. Wrong. They should all be legal wives. Li Jia scratched his head awkwardly and then said, you're very greedy. You already have 3 beauties, but you still want to take in more. I just don't know if they're willing to be taken in by you. Zhang Lanchong said angrily. Anyway, I already have 3. There's no harm in having a few more. Li Jia looked as if he didn't care and then said, I don't know if they're willing to be taken in by me, but it's better to lay things out and talk about it. It's better than keeping it in your heart. It's better to be so straightforward from the start. Zhang Lanchong said meaningfully. It's not too late now. You're not married yet. Li Jia said, then looked at Yueru and asked, are you willing to be my wife? Although Xiao Lingyu wanted to stop him, he couldn't control his body. Even if he was still conscious, he was still suppressed. Everyone felt that there was something wrong with Xiao Lingyu, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And Xiao Lingyu said that he wanted to take in more concubines, which also diverted everyone's attention. First you rejected my confession, then you kill my husband. Now you're asking me this. Don't be long-winded. If you're willing, then you're willing. If you're not, then you're not. Just give me a straight answer. Before Yueru could finish, Li Jia had already cut her off. He looked as if he had no patience. Yueru hesitated for a moment, then sneered and said, you don't even mind that I'm a widow. Why wouldn't I be willing? Li Jia didn't care about Yueru's expression. He looked at Linger and asked, what about you? Linger frowned. She didn't think that she would have a part in this, but her expression was still very calm. She said, I'm only willing to follow you forever. I don't care how I do it or how I do it. The original Ling had already perished in the cultivation world. The current Ling Er's consciousness and memories were all instilled in her by Xiao Lingyu. She didn't have any disloyalty towards Xiao Lingyu. No matter what Xiao Lingyu asked her to do, she would do it without hesitation. However, Ling felt that Xiao Lingyu had always regarded her as her biological sister. She couldn't understand why she would make such a request. Li Jia looked at Jiang Lanyue again. He didn't say anything, but his meaning was obvious. My sister won't share a husband with other women. Before Jiang Lanyue could say anything, Zhang Lanchong had already answered for her. So, you're not willing either? Li Jia asked Jiang Lanchong. Do I look like I'm willing at all? Jiang Lanchong rolled her eyes and replied straightforwardly. Sure enough, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. She clearly wants it, but she says she's not willing. Li Jia shook his head and sighed. Nonsense. My sister may be willing, but I don't have any good feelings towards a heartless man like you. Jiang Lanchong glared at him and said, then I'll start with you. Li Jia suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Jiang Lanchong's shoulder with one hand. What are you doing? Enough. Jiang Lanchong and Miao Ying said one after the other. At this moment, the divine power of chaos had already sealed Jiang Lanchong's cultivation. Li Jia's face was cold. He said to the other women, all of you get out. "You gone too far today," Miaoing said coldly. The other women didn't leave the quiet room. They all stared at Xiao Yu in confusion. They still didn't understand why Xiao Yu was so abnormal today. Going too far. So what? Li Jia stared at Miaoing. He had already released the aura of an expert. Miaoing couldn't help but take a step back. In this world where the strong are respected, true experts can do whatever they want. You can be unconvinced, but you must have the ability to be unconvinced. After Li Jia said this domineeringly, Xiao Yu's powerful aura pushed all the women out of the quiet room, except for Jiang Lanchang. Bang! The door of the quiet room was closed. What should we do? Qing Xian and the others panicked. No, I have to save my sister. Jiang Lanyue was about to attack the door of the quiet room, but she was stopped by Anya. It's no use. His quiet room has countless powerful restrictions. It's not something we can break. Anya said helplessly. What's wrong with him today? It's as if he's a completely different person. Qing Xian said angrily. There must be something wrong. Miaoing said with narrowed eyes. Could he be a fake? Not my husband, but someone else? Qing Xian asked. It shouldn't be. No matter if it's his appearance, aura, or his cultivation method, there's no problem. These aren't things that can be easily faked. Ling also added, then what should we do? My sister is still inside. Jiang Lanyue said anxiously, he might just be joking with your sister. Anya comforted her helplessly. In fact, Li Jiao wasn't joking. Just as the women were discussing outside the quiet room, he controlled Xiao Yu's body and pressed Jiang Lanyue onto the floor of the quiet room. If you continue, you'll be publicly breaking our previous agreement. You'll definitely regret it. Xiao Yu warned angrily. Stop pretending. You can have 3 wives, which means you're not a single-minded person. This girl is beautiful and has character. It won't do you any harm to keep her. Chapter 758. Jiang Lanchang indeed didn't have much affection for Xiao Yu. Ever since she met Xiao Yu in the cultivation world, she had only been curious about Xiao Yu. When she met Xiao Yu again in the divine realm, she saw that Xiao Yu had an ambiguous relationship with her sister. Jiang Lanchang really didn't have a good impression of Xiao Yu. As for Jiang Lanchang, she was, after all, the daughter of a great power in the narrow sense of the god realm. She was like a princess in the secular world. She had never thought that she would be married, let alone that she would be violently pressed down by a man. Originally, Jiang Lanchang had thought that her sister would at most compromise and reluctantly marry Xiao Yu, sharing a husband with other women. She had never thought that the man her sister had taken a fancy to would actually be pressing down on her at this moment. Moreover, he had already torn her clothes to shreds. Jiang Lanchang, whose cultivation had been sealed, had no power to resist other than tearing up and gnashing her teeth to express her indignation. At this moment, Jiang Lanchang finally understood that in the divine realm, only the strong were respected. The truly strong could do whatever they wanted. But Jiang Lanchang, like the other women, was puzzled by Xiao Yu's almost irrational behavior. Although she hated Xiao Yu a little because of her sister, she had always thought that Xiao Yu was a pretty good cultivator. At least she was open and upright, chivalrous, and didn't seem like someone who was impatient for sex, nor did she seem like an ungrateful person. There wasn't much time left for Jiang Lanchang to think. Xiao Yu's large hand had already started to wander around her body, caressing from her cheek to the corner of her lips, then from her neck to her chest, and finally kneading her pair of not-so-full breasts. Her pair of soft and smooth breasts kept changing shape in Xiao Yu's hands. Then, that despicable hand began to move downwards, across her lower abdomen. Xiao Yu's mouth was already on her red lips. She used her tongue to pry open her teeth and greedily sucked the fragrant saliva in her mouth, mixing it with her lilac tongue. Just as Li Jia had said, even though Li Jia was in control of Xiao Yu's body, only Xiao Yu's soul consciousness could feel everything that Xiao Yu's body received. Jiang Lanyue's gentleness and her smooth and tender skin constantly stimulated Xiao Yu's consciousness. As for Li Jia, He probably did this to embarrass Xiao Yu, so that he could take revenge for Xiao Yu's self-destruction. Li Jia wanted Xiao Yu to take the body of a woman who didn't want to marry him. He wanted to make Xiao Yu's soul consciousness feel ashamed. Jiang Lanchang's body was actually given to Xiao Yu. It had nothing to do with Li Jia. However, this was on the premise that Xiao Yu wouldn't lose this body in the end. Naturally, the way demons did things couldn't be judged by common sense. As a demon from another world, Li Jia didn't have much interest in this female cultivator from the realm of the gods. This was just like the female cultivators that Xiao Yu met during his travels in the realm of the gods. He didn't have a good impression of them. Xiao Yu could also guess that the demon Li Jia was tormenting and teasing him. He wanted to make him lose his balance so that he could find an opportunity to destroy his own consciousness. Xiao Yu's protest was useless against Li Jia. After all, even if he was causing trouble in his soul, he couldn't bring much trouble to Li Jia. After all, Li Jia wasn't fighting against a strong enemy. After this incident, Xiao Yu didn't dare to risk his life against Li Jia. After all, Li Jia was still controlling his body and could easily kill his friends and family. She should still be having sex for the first time. It'll be good for you to do it with her, Li Jia said with a smile. At this moment, Xiao Yu had already taken off his clothes and was trying to take the next step. Enjoy it. Perhaps you won't have many days to enjoy it. When Xiao Yu entered Jiang Lanchang's body, Li Jia temporarily released his control over Xiao Yu's body. After regaining control of his body, Xiao Yu immediately withdrew and released the shackles on Jiang Lanchang. However, the entry just now had already caused Jiang Lanchang to bleed. What was done couldn't be undone. Although this wasn't Xiao Yu's original intention, he still felt guilty when he saw the 2 lines of tears on Jiang Lanchang's cheeks. "I'm sorry. This wasn't my original intention," Xiao Yu said apologetically. "Huh?" Jiang Lanchang laughed bitterly. She stubbornly wiped her tears and didn't put on her clothes. She just stared at Xiao Yu and said with hatred, "What's wrong? What tricks do you want to play now? You've already done what you shouldn't have done. Now you're apologizing. Don't you think you're ridiculous? I was controlled by the demon just now. You can actually find a better reason." Without waiting for Xiao Yu to finish his explanation, Jiang Lanchang had already interjected and said sarcastically, "Where's your domineering attitude just now? Aren't you supposed to be able to do whatever you want?" "Haha." The demon Li Jia laughed in Xiao Yu's soul and said, "A woman like her can only be conquered by force. The more submissive you are, the more she will think of you as a coward. You already have 3 wives, but you're still so stupid. Don't expect a woman like her to take the initiative to stick to you. Oof. You'll be kind enough to help me?" Xiao Yu replied Li Jia, but in his heart, he also felt that Li Jia's words were somewhat reasonable. He turned to Jiang Lanchang and said, "Hurry up and put on your clothes. I'll send you out." "You stripped me naked just because you wanted to, and now you wanted to put on my clothes just because you want me to? Do you still want me to go out and pretend that nothing happened?" Jiang Lanchang glared at him and asked, "Then what do you want?" Xiao Yu asked helplessly. "I want to kill you." Jiang Lanchang suddenly exploded, and an extremely sharp short sword appeared in his hand. He viciously stabbed it towards Xiao Yu's heart. This short sword was a heavenly spiritual sword obtained from a treasure trove. Its quality was not low. Although it could not pierce Xiao Yu's body, it still pierced Xiao Yu's flesh. Out of an instinctive self-defense reaction, Xiao Yu grabbed Jiang Lanchang's wrist and snatched the short sword away. As the short sword was pulled out, blood spurted out, but Xiao Yu quickly sealed his wound. Clang! Xiao Yu threw the short sword on the floor of the quiet room, but Jiang Lanchang still pounced on Xiao Yu and used his other hand to slap him on the shoulder. This kind of slap was powerless against Xiao Yu, but it made Xiao Yu feel a little irritated. Xiao Yu was already very angry to have his body taken over by an evil spirit and his consciousness suppressed. Now that Jiang Lanchang was making such a fuss, he felt a headache coming on. Grabbing Jiang Lanchang's other arm, Xiao Yu said, "Stop fooling around. I will take responsibility for this. Jiang Lanchang still refused to give up. She asked, didn't you just say that the evil spirit took control of your body? Then how are you going to take responsibility? That's right. With his current situation, he might be destroyed by the evil spirit at any time. How is he going to take responsibility for Jiang Lanchang? But he didn't want this to happen. Everything was out of his control. Huh? Li Jia laughed in Xiao Lingyu's soul again. The reason why he let go of his control over Xiao Lingyu at this time was to see Xiao Lingyu make a fool of himself. He seemed to enjoy Xiao Lingyu's current embarrassment. If I don't die, I will definitely take responsibility. Xiao Lingyu said, then you could go to hell right now. I don't need you to take responsibility. Jiang Lanchang had almost lost her mind. No woman would be able to remain calm when faced with such a situation. Enough. Xiao Lingyu was also a little angry. He pressed Jiang Lanchang to the ground again and threatened, do you believe that I won't continue? Does it make a difference whether you continue or not? You lecher, shameless person. Jiang Lanchang cursed. All right. To be honest, I'm in a precarious situation. Why should I care so much? If you want it, I'll fulfill your wish. Jiang Lanchang wanted to continue cursing, but her little mouth was sealed by Xiao Lingyu's mouth. Jiang Lanchang didn't wear clothes just now, which saved Xiao Lingyu a lot of time. He wasn't in the mood to enjoy the process and directly thrust into Jiang Lanchang's body again. You dawdled for so long, but the result is still the same, Li Jia said with a bit of ridicule. Xiao Lingyu didn't have the mood to care about Li Jia. He seemed to be angered, and his actions were a little rough. Jiang Lanchang was already at the level of an expert in the realm of the gods, but Xiao Lingyu was stronger than her. Under Xiao Lingyu's attacks, she seemed to be a little overwhelmed. She was panting and didn't have the strength to scold Xiao Lingyu anymore. If you don't want to suffer too much, cooperate with the dual cultivation technique. Xiao Lingyu reminded Jiang Lanchang, then began to operate the dual cultivation technique. He wanted to form the yin-yang harmony with Jiang Lanchang. Jiang Lanchang didn't cooperate, but she didn't resist either. The dual cultivation technique was completely under Xiao Lingyu's control. Believe it or not, it really was a demon that controlled my body just now. Xiao Lingyu still explained. Jiang Lanchang turned her head away. Apart from Jiang Lanchang, all the girls waited outside the quiet room for a full 3 days before the door opened again. Jiang Lanchang walked out with tears in her eyes. Sister Shang, he didn't do anything to you, right? Jiang Lanyue went up and asked with concern. You think too highly of him. Jiang Lanchang smiled sadly. I'll fight it out with him. Jiang Lanyue was very agitated. She wanted to rush into the quiet room, but was stopped by Jiang Lanchang. If you go in now, you'll be like a lamb in a tiger's den. Jiang Lanchang seemed to be more rational. Are we just going to let him bully you? Jiang Lanyue said angrily. What else can we do? On this heaven-reaching sacred island, we're not the young ladies of a big power. We're living under someone else's roof. Jiang Lanchang laughed self-deprecatingly. Sisters, please calm down. We'll definitely make him give us an explanation. Anya stood up and said. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu also came out of the quiet room. He said to the girls, let's go back. Instead of wasting our breath here, why don't we save some time and cultivate so that we can protect ourselves in the face of the upcoming danger? Chapter 759. Because Xiao Lingyu wasn't a virgin, Jiang Lanchang didn't gain much from this dual cultivation. He only stabilized his ascension realm early stage. On the other hand, Jiang Lanchang was a virgin, so the benefits of dual cultivation were naturally not small. Xiao Lingyu's soul realm had already stabilized at the ascension realm late stage, and his power had also improved greatly. However, for Xiao Lingyu, who had already cultivated his inner world, the improvement of his power wasn't much. The expansion of his inner world was the key. The larger the inner world, the more power of heaven and earth it contained. It allowed Xiao Lingyu to display even more powerful abilities. Once the inner world was formed, it could no longer be expanded by the impact of the power of heaven and earth. Instead, it had to be filled with more chaos origin power. Xiao Yu's power improvement could speed up his refinement of the chaos origin power. Naturally, it could also speed up the expansion of his inner world. The moment the inner world was formed, Xiao Yu had already completed the cultivation of the chaos origin power. It was only a matter of time before his soul realm and power level reached the peak of the ninth revolution late stage. He was about to reach the peak of the 9 revolution chaos formula. In other words, this technique had already reached its peak. If he wanted to seek greater improvement, he could only extend this technique. Unfortunately, his body was in a special condition. The evil demon Li Jia had occupied his body and most of his soul. He couldn't continue cultivating. Don't worry. Wait until we rescue Lord Xiao Wang and return to the evil demon realm. I can help you complete the extension of this technique. Li Jia had checked Xiao Lingyu's soul memories. Naturally, he knew that Xiao Lingyu still had some problems that had not been solved. Li Jia was already determined to obtain Xiao Lingyu's body. Obtaining this body was equivalent to obtaining all the results of Xiao Lingyu's previous cultivation. Li Jia was also very satisfied with the results of Xiao Lingyu's cultivation. He also felt that the 9 revolution chaos formula was a good technique and needed to continue cultivating it. Li Jia also believed that as long as he could rescue Lord Xiao Wang and safely return to the Devil Realm, with Lord Xiao Wang's help, it would not be difficult to extend the 9 revolution chaos formula. Since Li Jia controlled Xiao Lingyu, the cultivators of the Hua Min could no longer improve quickly by entering the chaos spectrum. The overall strength of the Hua Min could no longer increase rapidly. Linger was no longer in the mood to search for treasures. Fortunately, the Hua Min's treasure vault already had a rich collection, enough for the Hua Min to last for many years. One day, more than 300,000 years later, Xiao Lingyu suddenly left the Hua Min's base. Before leaving, he gathered all the Hua Min's leaders and gave them a strict order. For the next 1,000,000 years, no matter what happened on heaven-reaching Sacred Island, without his personal order, all the Hua Min's cultivators were to stay in the base and not leave. This order surprised the Hua Min's cultivators, but they did not have any objections. Most of the cultivators had their own selfish motives. They would only guard the base of the Hua Min and not fight with the Devil Realm. Naturally, they were happy to accept it. After leaving the Hua Min's base, Xiao Lingyu went to a sea area of the heaven-reaching Eastern Sea alone. However, he saw the mighty army of heaven-reaching Sacred Island's cultivators. Now that the Devil Realm was about to open the passage between the two worlds and invade, heaven-reaching Sacred Island naturally had to deal with it actively. They had to give the Devil Realm's army a head-on blow, so they gathered countless powerhouses here. Brother Xiao, you're a little late. Shun Gongbao and a few other powerhouses from Earth greeted him. I'm not late. The space passage hasn't formed yet, Xiao Lingyu said with a smile. Why are you here alone, Xiao Daoyu? Where are the Hua Min's powerhouses? Jiang Shang asked. The Hua Min's powerhouses will be here soon. Xiao Lingyu's expression did not change. He changed the topic and asked, where are the Wisdom King and the other top powerhouses? Jiang Shang said telepathically, they're setting up a large formation. Xiao Lingyu frowned slightly and asked, what formation? Jiang Shang replied, they're setting up an extremely powerful sealing formation on the way to the Devil Sealing Tower. They want the Devil Realm's army to suffer heavy losses on their way to the Devil Sealing Tower. Xiao Lingyu's eyes narrowed, and he said, that's a good idea. The main target of the demon army's invasion is definitely the Devil Seal Pagoda, and they might not dare to stay here for long. They'll definitely advance towards the Devil Seal Pagoda as soon as they make a breakthrough. If they're not careful, they might really fall into the Devil Seal Pagoda. Jiang Shang nodded and said, that's what the top experts are thinking. That formation is very well hidden, and according to the ancient records, the evil demon tribe cultivators are not proficient in the Dao formations. They will most likely fall for it. Xiao Lingyu only smiled and did not say anything else. This Xiao Lingyu was naturally still under Li Jia's control. He thought to himself, with my current identity, I can find out a lot of the enemy's secrets and reduce the casualties of my race's army. Shaoling Yu chatted with the group of Earth's powerhouses for a while more before silently leaving again. After flying at full speed for 3 days, Shaoling Yu stopped on a lone island in the southern sea. In a small valley on this lone island, Shaoling Yu found the 500-foot-tall Devil Realm powerhouse. Li Jia said to the tall Devil Realm cultivator, "They've set up an extremely powerful sealing formation on the way to the Devil's Sealing Tower in an attempt to inflict heavy losses on our race's army. When the passage between the two worlds opens, our race's army will most likely fall into the formation after breaking through their defenses. Then how should we deal with it? Should we go over and destroy that formation now?" The tall Devil Realm cultivator asked. "Wouldn't we be courting death if we go over now? There are so many top-notch powerhouses on the other side. The two of us alone will never be able to defeat them. If we were all at the peak of our strength back then, perhaps we could give it a try." Li Jia shook his head and said, "What I mean is when our race's army achieves a breakthrough, you should go and meet up with them, then lead them to take a detour." The tall Devil Realm cultivator frowned and thought for a while, then said, "Why should I lead them and not you?" Li Jia smiled and said, "I'm afraid that my race's men won't recognize me with my current appearance. I'll probably be attacked by them as soon as I get close. Moreover, I have more important things to do." The tall Devil Realm cultivator snorted and said, "Every time I'm at a disadvantage, I'm the one doing it. What important things can you possibly have?" Li Jia replied, "I have another identity now. I can make use of it." The tall Devil Realm cultivator said non-committally, "For the sake of Lord Xia Wang and for the sake of returning to the Devil Realm, the two of us have to work together." Li Jia said in a relaxed manner, "As long as our Devil Realm still has 10 or 20% of its strength back then, it'll be enough to conquer the Devil Sealing Tower." Borrowing Shaoling Yu's memories and knowledge, Li Jia had a good idea of the overall level of the current Heavenly Saint Island and the realm of the gods. Several tens of thousands of years later, the spatial fluctuations on the eastern sea of Heavenly Saint Island suddenly intensified, and the passage between the two worlds was about to open. Shaoling Yu didn't appear in this sea again, which puzzled the cultivators of the Earth lineage, and also annoyed the other top powerhouses of the Heavenly Saint Island. The Huamin, who had become the most powerful force of the Heavenly Saint Island, didn't send a single powerhouse here, as if they wanted to stay out of this matter. This would definitely arouse everyone's disgust. What was even more infuriating was that even the leader of the Huamin, Shaoling Yu, didn't appear again. Just as everyone was guessing, Shaoling Yu returned to the Huamin station and gathered all the more than 2,000 Heavenly Saint Island powerhouses under the Huamin's command and put them into the primal chaos spectrum. Then, Shaoling Yu left the Huamin station again, and no one knew where she went. Finally, the passage between the two worlds opened. A black hole with a diameter of tens of thousands of feet appeared in the air above the eastern sea of Heavenly Saint Island. Waves of evil and vast, terrifying aura, accompanied by strange and loud battle cries, came out of the black hole, giving people a hair-raising feeling. The army of the Heavenly Saint Island surrounded the black hole in a half-moon shape. As soon as the enemy came out, they would immediately cast spells to attack. The terrifying aura gradually formed gusts of wind, accompanied by the increasingly clear and deafening battle cries, shaking everyone's souls. All the powerhouses of the Heavenly Saint Island became nervous, and the cowardly ones were even trembling. After 4 hours, the gusts of wind were too fierce, and the formation had to retreat a little. The power of the gale continued to increase. However, along with the gale, there was also a blood-red mist in addition to the loud battle song. Some of the cultivators were accidentally invaded by the blood-red mist and gradually lost their mind and consciousness, becoming crazy. This blood-red mist had once caused Shaoling Yu to lose his mind and become crazy and bloodthirsty. Ordinary cultivators, especially those below the Heavenly Saint realm, were unable to defend against it. More and more cultivators fell into madness, and they, who had lost their minds, kept attacking the powerhouses on their side, immediately causing the formation to become chaotic. Just as the powerhouses on the other side were about to defend against the blood-red mist, several hundred huge balls of blood-red light suddenly flew out of the spatial tunnel. The several hundred balls of blood-red light were like streaks of light. Not long after they charged out of the black hole, they exploded one after another. The power of each explosion was no weaker than the self-destruction of a divine spirit treasure. Under the impact of the several hundred balls of blood-red light, the formation of the heavenly Saint Island army was pushed back once more, and their formation was already in chaos. After all, they were not from the same organization, and they had never worked together before. There was no tacit understanding at all, due to everyone's high concentration. And with the help of the peak powerhouses, the explosion of the several hundred balls of blood-red light did not cause much damage to them. Before the heavenly Saint Island army could reorganize their formation, another dozen or so huge chariots the size of dragon boats emerged from the spatial tunnel. The chariots seemed to have grown eyes, and they charged towards the heavenly Saint Island army with a ferocious presence. Even with countless powerhouses working together, they were unable to stop them. Chapter 760. Blood-red wind mist, blood-red balls of light, blood-red chariots. The three waves of attacks worked together to tear apart the formation of the Heavenspan Saint Island's army. The half-Uru formation was already in tatters, and the entire Heavenspan Saint Island's army was in an extremely sorry state. Many cultivators' faces were filled with panic and fear. However, at this moment, 4 cultivators over 300 meters tall flew out of the bottomless black hole. The 4 cultivators were like giants, standing tall in the sky. Their auras were disdainful, and they radiated the pressure of peak experts. As soon as they appeared, they roared in unison. Their red hair danced wildly in the wind, and their mighty auras shook the entire divine world. Huge blood-red swords suddenly appeared in their hands. The 4 swords danced in the air, and 4 streaks of sword-light shot towards the Heavenspan Saint Island's army, instantly reaping the lives of several hundred experts. Behind the 4 cultivators, smaller demons constantly surged out. They surged towards this world like a tide. First, it was 10,000, then 100,000, 1,000,000, 10 million, over 100 million. More and more demons invaded, but the Heavenspan Saint Island's army did not face them head-on. It was too easy for the demons to descend. It was not that the Heavenspan Saint Island's army was not prepared, but that the other side was even more prepared. The Heavenspan Saint Island's army retreated again and again. Finally, with the efforts of some peak experts and various large factions, the army regrouped. The demons came with ferocious momentum, and they constantly charged at the Heavenspan Saint Island's army. The two sides engaged in a bitter battle in the ocean. In just 3 days, the Heavenspan Saint Island's army finally ran out of energy, and they began to retreat in the direction of the Heavenspan Saint Island. The demons pursued closely, and they looked like they were going to cripple the Heavenspan Saint Island's army in one go. It was not that the Heavenspan Saint Island's army did not have the ability or courage to resist. Instead, they were feigning defeat, and they wanted to lure the demons into the ceiling formation set up by the peak experts. However, to the surprise of the peak experts of the Heavenspan Saint Island, just as the demons were about to charge into the ceiling formation, they suddenly changed directions and tried to go around it. Obviously, either the other party had seen through the layout of this place, or the secrets of this place had been leaked. However, the demon army had only just invaded, so how could they know about the secret arrangements of Heavenly Saint Island? Could it be that there were also powerful array masters in the demon army? No one could answer all these questions. The army and experts of heaven reaching Saint Island could only give up on this powerful ceiling formation and retreat to another stronghold. The peak experts of Skyspan Saint Island had long known that the invasion of the demon army was for the demon ceiling tower, so they knew that defending the demon ceiling tower was of utmost importance. As a result, Skyspan Saint Island had to put up the most tenacious resistance on the way to the demon ceiling tower. The two sides fought a bloody battle all the way from the Tongtian Sea to the eastern continent of the Tongtian Saint Island, and then from the eastern continent to the inland. Both sides also had countless experts, but there were only two levels of experts. The first was the holy god-level experts, and the second was the heavenly ingress-level experts. In these two aspects, the demon army that kept pouring and had a greater number of holy god-level experts, but their heavenly ingress-level experts were no less than those of heaven-reaching Saint Island. Of course, if the 2,000 heavenly ingress experts of the Huan Min also joined in, the heavenly ingress experts of heaven-reaching Saint Island would have the advantage. However, the Huan Min experts and the master of the Huan Min had not appeared recently. Even the Peacock Bright Monarch, who had a good relationship with the master of the Huan Min, Shaoling Yu, could not find her. The Huan Min were an extremely powerful force of heaven reaching Saint Island. This force was not effective, which was the main reason why heaven reaching Saint Island was retreating. In fact, there were countless holy god-level cultivators in the god realm, but they were too scattered. Even if they prepared for millions of years, they would not be able to gather all of them, not to mention that they had not prepared for that long. In the battle between the two levels, heaven reaching Saint Island was at a disadvantage. Even if their top experts took action, they could not turn the tide. After all, the other side had no lack of top experts. It took the demon army a total of 5,000 years to invade this place. In the end, they were only less than 10,000 miles away from the demon sealing tower. In these 5,000 years, they were not fighting all the time. Most of the time was spent on the road. However, in this short period of time, both sides had suffered heavy losses. Although heaven-reaching Saint Island did not have the advantage in terms of the number of experts of each level, they were proficient in formations and combination battle skills. Moreover, they had used the various arrangements they had set up on the road to deal a heavy blow to the demon army. Even so, the cultivators of heavenly Saint Island were still forced to retreat again and again. This was because the demons were willing to risk their lives and charge forward without retreating. This kind of spirit was something that the cultivators of heavenly Saint Island did not possess. Amidst the resounding battle cries and the pious shouts, countless evil demon cultivators charged fearlessly into the area covered by the hundreds of millions of streaks of light, like moths darting into a flame. In the end, they were annihilated. Then, countless evil demon cultivators followed suit. This kind of opponent was the most troublesome to the enemy, but also the most worthy of the enemy's heartfelt admiration. At this point, countless cultivators from all over the god realm and heaven-reaching Saint Island had come to reinforce them. Heaven-reaching Saint Island was no longer at a disadvantage. In fact, they were even showing signs of counterattacking. Most of the transcending heaven experts from the fiend realm had already arrived. There weren't many reinforcements coming from the fiend realm. Most of them were Saint God Realm fiend devils, and Saint God Realm cultivators couldn't decide the outcome of the battle. Therefore, the demon army could only fight to the death in order to reach the center of heaven-reaching Saint Island and reach the Devil Sealing Tower. The road from the heaven-reaching Eastern Sea to the Devil Sealing Tower was a road of death paved with corpses and blood of the demon cultivators. However, although it was less than 10,000 kilometers away, the demon army would suffer heavy blows with every step they took. Since the peak experts of heaven-reaching Saint Island knew that the demon army's target was the Devil Sealing Tower, they naturally set up many defensive and counterattack formations near the Devil Sealing Tower. Moreover, heaven-reaching Saint Island could no longer continue to retreat. They had to stubbornly resist. Through reading ancient books, the peak experts of Skyspan Saint Island had long since found out that the nefarious king of the nefarious demon race was sealed within the Devil Sealing Tower. If the nefarious demon army managed to rescue the nefarious king, Skyspan Saint Island, and even the entire divine world would have no chance to make a comeback. The battle continued day and night. Countless cultivators from both sides fell almost every moment. The thick smell of blood was so thick that even the wind could not blow it away. When the demon army advanced another 5,000 kilometers, the leader of the Huan Min, Shaoling Yu, suddenly appeared. Moreover, he brought over 2,000 Hua Min's heaven-reaching Saint Island experts to the battlefield near the Devil's Ceiling Tower. For heaven-reaching Saint Island, which had suffered heavy losses, the sudden appearance of 2,000 heaven-reaching Saint Island was definitely enough to raise their morale. In fact, up until now, the number of heaven-reaching Saint Island experts on both sides did not exceed 10,000. The sudden appearance of 2,000 heaven-reaching Saint Island experts would determine the outcome of this long and drawn-out war. Without a doubt, the appearance of the Hua Min's heaven-reaching Saint Island gave heaven-reaching Saint Island hope of victory. Everyone felt that the appearance of the Hua Min's experts was just a selfish act on the part of the Hua Min. The Hua Min did not want their experts to join the battle too early and suffer heavy losses. What made everyone feel gratified was that the Hua Min's experts immediately joined the battle after arriving. This gave heaven-reaching Saint Island's experts, who had been fighting bitterly for a long time, a chance to catch their breaths. Right now, heaven-reaching Saint Island's side was mainly focused on defense. Moreover, they were constantly changing shifts to ensure that they had sufficient fighting strength. The arrival of the Hua Min's experts completely took over the heaven-reaching Saint Island's defensive line. The other factions and experts did not hesitate to retreat and recuperate. The Hua Min's experts on the defensive line were also engaged in a fierce battle with the demon army. However, the fierce battle lasted less than 3 days. It was unknown whether the Hua Min's cultivators had suddenly increased the intensity of their attacks, or whether the Hua Min's cultivators were not fully prepared for this battle. But the defensive line held by the Hua Min's experts suddenly collapsed without warning. The cultivators who had just retreated to the rear did not have time to support the front line. The demon army took advantage of this opportunity to charge straight into the demon's ceiling tower, rushing to a place less than 100 miles away. The Hua Min, who currently had more than 1,500 heaven-reaching Saint Island experts, surrounded the demon's ceiling tower as if they were going to fight to the death with the enemy. The experts who were preparing to recuperate or had just entered a state of recuperation moved out one after another, throwing themselves into the battlefield once again. However, the current battlefield was a mess. Both sides no longer had any formation to speak of. They were just fighting each other around the demon's ceiling tower. Even the top experts on both sides had their own opponents. Moreover, they were dragging their heavily injured bodies to fight. The chaotic battle continued. Everyone knew that this was the final battle, and the result would determine victory and defeat, as well as the fate of the cultivators on both sides. The Hua Min's more than 1,000 heaven-reaching Saint Island experts did not participate in the chaotic battle. Instead, they surrounded the demon's ceiling tower, as if they were the last line of defense for heaven-reaching Saint Island. It was precisely because the Hua Min's experts were protecting the demon's ceiling tower that the other cultivators of heaven-reaching Saint Island were able to focus on the chaotic battle elsewhere. However, at this moment, in front of the demon's ceiling tower, there was a towering demon over 1,500 feet tall working together with the master of the Hua Min, Shaoling Yu. They were actively bombarding the ceiling formation around the demon's ceiling tower. The Hua Min's experts were also very puzzled as to why their sect master would work together with the demon. However, they were still Hua Min's cultivators, subordinates of Shaoling Yu. They did not dare to interfere with their sect master's matters. They could only listen to their sect master's orders and forbid any cultivators from approaching the demon's ceiling tower, regardless of whether they were demon cultivators or heaven-reaching Saint Island experts. Chapter 761. Li Jia, your other identity is really useful. If it weren't for your other identity, we wouldn't have been able to break the restrictions here without any distractions, even with the help of countless people from my race. The tall, nefarious devil laughed as he bombarded the restrictions. Shaluo, let's cut the crap. Lord Xia Wang is still waiting for us in the Devil's Ceiling Tower. If you have anything to say, say it when you see Xia Wang, Li Jia said with a serious expression. Under the joint attack of the two otherworldly evil demon powerhouses, the restrictive arrays around the demon ceiling tower only lasted for less than 3 months before they were completely broken. In these 3 months of chaotic battles, both the nefarious devil race and Heavenspan Saint Island suffered heavy losses. In order to prevent their two experts from being disturbed, the nefarious devil race cultivators fought even more fiercely against the Heavenspan Saint Island experts. Even if they died in battle, they would severely injure their opponents. The nefarious devil race cultivators fought without any regard for their lives, bringing great pressure to Heavenspan's Sacred Island. Even their peak experts were greatly exhausted and were all injured. It was precisely because the nefarious devil race cultivators fought so fiercely that their losses were far greater than those of Heavenspan's Sacred Island. Defeat was only a matter of time. However, the nefarious devil race cultivators bought enough time for their two experts to open the Devil Ceiling Tower. In their opinion, their sacrifice was worth it. When the Devil Ceiling Pagoda's wide, open doors appeared in front of everyone's eyes, and when everyone saw the tall nefarious devil enter the Devil Ceiling Pagoda with Shaolin Yu, the nefarious devil race, and Heavenly Saint Island's top experts all stopped fighting and rushed into the Devil Ceiling Pagoda together. The two sides were fighting a bloody battle for Xie Wang inside the Devil Ceiling Tower. Now that the Devil Ceiling Tower had been opened and the nefarious devil race cultivators had entered the Devil Ceiling Tower, the battlefield naturally shifted from outside to inside the Devil Ceiling Tower. The nefarious devil race cultivators didn't enter the Devil Ceiling Tower to fight, but to rescue Xie Wang. The peak experts of Heavenspan Sacred Island only wanted to prevent Xie Wang from coming out. The Devil Ceiling Tower's 8th floor and below had already been swept clean, so everyone could easily reach the 7th floor. However, the 8th floor was different. The spatial pressure there was even more powerful. It was filled with chaotic energy and demonic chi. Even peak experts couldn't stay there for long. The demonic chi on the 8th floor couldn't affect the nefarious devil race cultivators, while the chaotic energies had a greater effect on both sides. Thus, the environment of the 8th floor should be more advantageous for the nefarious devil race cultivators. Most importantly, the nefarious devil race cultivators had taken control of Shaolin Yu's body. Shaolin Yu was an expert who possessed chaotic energy and had even refined chaotic origin power. The rich chaotic energy on the 8th floor didn't affect him much, and Li Jia was a nefarious devil race cultivator. With the two combined, Li Jia wasn't restricted at all on the 8th floor of the Devil Ceiling Tower. He even had the advantage of being a fish in the water. Apart from Li Jia and Shera, there were 3 other nefarious devil race cultivators who had entered the 8th floor of the Devil Ceiling Tower. There were 7 from Heavenspan Sacred Island, including the Mahamayuri, Saber 9, Shaman King, the Sovereign of All Saints, the second strongest expert of the Sacred Army, Liang Tianzi, and a hidden expert that Shaolin Yu had never seen before. Originally, the nefarious devil race had several peak experts, but they had either died in battle or lost their ability to fight due to their heavy injuries. If Li Jiao wasn't taken into account, Heavenspan Sacred Island's peak experts would have a slight advantage. However, if Li Jiao was included, the situation would be completely different. Apart from Li Jia, all the peak experts who had entered the 8th floor of the Devil Ceiling Tower had their strength restricted by 90%. In addition, everyone had entered after a bitter battle, so everyone's strength was less than 10% of their peak. Even if Shaolin Yu's body was slightly weaker than the peak experts, he could still be considered an invincible existence on the 8th floor of the Devil Ceiling Tower. However, although Li Jia and Shera had not fought a fierce battle before, they had consumed a lot of energy in order to break through the restrictive formation around the Devil Ceiling Tower. Li Jia controlled Shaolin Yu's body. Although he was not restricted in the slightest on the 8th floor of the Devil Ceiling Tower, this body was not Li Jia's after all. Li Jia could not control it as he wished. Moreover, Li Jia had to guard against Shaolin Yu, causing trouble in the depths of his soul. In fact, the strength that he could unleash was only 30% of Shaolin Yu's peak. Even if it was only 30%, Li Jia still had a great advantage over the other peak experts. After all, Xiaoling Yu's body had cultivated an inner world. After all, Xiaoling Yu also had the Chaos Scroll, a chaos treasure. Unlike the 7th floor, there were also many petrified statues on the 8th floor. However, when these statues were alarmed, they would not explode into fiends. Instead, they would remain in their original form and attack everyone. These petrified statues did not look like statues, but rather stone golems. They could also absorb the chaos force on the 8th floor and use it to fight. The battle between the peak experts of the nefarious demon race and Heavenspan Saint Island on the 8th floor naturally alarmed many stone golems. These stone golems held stone weapons in their hands. Whether it was the nefarious demon race or the Heavenspan Saint Island cultivators, they were all targets of their attacks. The stone golems seemed cumbersome, but their attacks with the chaos force were very powerful. Moreover, their stone bodies and weapons were of extremely high quality, so the strength that they could unleash on the 8th floor was not inferior to the peak experts. With the addition of these stone golems, the situation immediately became more complicated and chaotic. However, the peak experts of the nefarious demon race, including Li Jia, had no intention of fighting with the Heavenspan Saint Island experts or the stone golems. They were only focused on finding the stairs to the 9th floor. Although the peak experts of the Heavenspan Saint Island were anxious to fight the nefarious demon race experts, the stone golems made it impossible for them to go all out. They could only reluctantly follow the nefarious demon race experts. For hours after everyone entered the 8th floor of the Demon's Ceiling Pagoda, the staircase to the 9th floor was finally discovered. However, just like the staircase to the previous floors, the staircase to the 9th floor wasn't unobstructed. At this moment, there were 81 stone golems standing motionlessly at the entrance of the staircase. The 81 stone golems were not arranged neatly. They were in groups of 9, and each group was in a diamond-shaped formation of 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. The formation of the 9 groups of stone golems was the same. It was obviously a systematic combination of formations. It was obvious that if they wanted to go to the 9th floor, they had to deal with these 81 stone golems first. Now, Tianzi Liang and the Peacock Bright Monarch had already guessed that Xiaoling Yu had been controlled by the nefarious demon race experts. The peak experts of the Heavenspan Saint Island had no intention of going to the 9th floor, so they did not have to think about how to deal with the 81 stone golems blocking the entrance of the stairs. They only needed to continue attacking the nefarious demon race experts. Not only would it be difficult and dangerous to attack the 81 stone golems in a formation, but they might not be able to achieve their wish. Moreover, there were many stone golems and the 7 Heavenspan Saint Island experts behind them who would obstruct them. Therefore, there was almost no hope of a forceful attack. The nefarious demon race experts had put in a lot of effort for this operation and were well prepared. They had naturally expected that there would be a situation where they could not take another step forward on the path to achieving their wish. However, they still came, which proved that they had a way to deal with it. After hesitating for a moment at the entrance of the stairs to the 9th floor, a nefarious demon race expert over 3,000 feet tall opened his mouth and spat out a red stone that looked like a cobblestone. The red stone flew to the entrance of the stairs to the 9th floor and exploded. Waves of strange energy waves instantly enveloped the 81 stone golems. As for the few evil demon clan rankers, they rushed towards the stairs without hesitation. What was surprising was that the 81 stone golems that were waiting in formation did not move at all, allowing the few evil demon clan rankers to pass through their formation. The peak experts of Skyspan Saint Island were stunned at first, but then they passed by the 81 stone men. From this, it could be seen that the 81 stone men had been trapped by the strange fluctuations. However, the few evil demon powerhouses who were already at the entrance of the 9th floor suddenly turned around and attacked the peak experts of the Heavenspan Saint Island at the same time. Only Saber 9, the Shaman King, the Honorable of all Saints, and Tianzi Liang made it to the entrance of the 9th floor under the full force attack of the enemy. The other 3 peak experts, including the Peacock Bright Monarch, were blasted far away. However, the strange energy waves suddenly stopped. The 81 stone golems were instantly awakened. They waved the stone weapons in their hands and attacked the Peacock Bright Monarch and the other 2 peak experts. The Peacock Bright Monarch and the other 2 peak experts of the Heavenspan Saint Island had lost their chance to enter the 9th floor. They could not break through the defense of the 81 stone golems at all. They could not hold on for long on the 8th floor either, so they had to endure the attacks of the other stone golems and retreat to the 7th floor. After attacking, the few evil demon powerhouses entered the 9th floor directly. They had no intention of fighting Saber 9 and the other 3 peak experts. The 9th floor of the Demon Ceiling Pagoda was completely different from the previous 8th floor. This place looked like a vast and boundless starry sky. In the distant void, there were countless planets emitting a bright radiance. There were also gorgeous cosmic nebulae. It was a magnificent sight, deep and vast. The spatial pressure here was even stronger than on the 8th floor. It was many times stronger than the divine realm outside the Demon Ceiling Tower. Although everyone was a peak expert, it would be difficult for them to move around in this vast starry sky with their bodies alone. They soon discovered that the spatial pressure here was so strong because the frequency of the spatial energy waves was too high. Furthermore, the spatial energy waves contained the natural power of heaven and earth in this world. It was not because the space here was enhanced by some formation. As peak experts of the Heavenspan Peak, everyone could borrow the natural power of heaven and earth in the world they were in. However, this was a new world. The truth of heaven and earth and the natural order here were different from the outside world. Everyone had to use their hearts to sense it first. Only then could they borrow the natural power of heaven and earth to increase their speed. It seemed like this month's gold medallion would not reach 300. However, if you have any gold medallions, please give them to the 9 Revolutions Chaos Formula. Otherwise, it would be invalid once it expired. If they could reach 300 gold medallions, Xiaofei would update 3 times a day for the next month. Chapter 762. The true top powerhouses were all at the peak of the late stage of the Tongtian realm. They had 1 foot in the immortal realm, so they could quickly comprehend the natural order of heaven and earth in any world and use it for their own purposes. Xiaoling Yu had the ability of a top powerhouse, but he did not have the cultivation level of a top powerhouse. Moreover, his soul was restrained by Li Jia's soul. This made it difficult for Li Jia, who had taken over his body, to communicate with the natural power of heaven and earth in other worlds. However, Xiaoling Yu already had an inner world. Li Jia could use the natural power of heaven and earth in his inner world to resist the pressure of this world, thus gaining a relatively fast speed. Everyone's speed continued to increase as they gradually went deeper into the galaxy. The spatial pressure in this universe was too great. It was impossible to form life forms. There was only empty space and resplendent planets. The 4 top powerhouses of Tongtian Saint Island, Tianzi, the Honorable 10,000 Saints, the Shaman King, and Saber 9, were still chasing after the evil demon powerhouses. Although they were powerful, they were heavily injured. Moreover, they no longer had any advantage and were even at a disadvantage. They could only chase after them and did not force themselves to fight. Everyone used various methods to recover their strength as they traveled. After tens of thousands of years, they finally stopped. In a nearby galaxy, there were 9 planets burning with flames of various colors. They formed a circle, and at the center of the circle was a huge iron coffin. The iron coffin was grayish-black. It was about 2,000 feet long, 5,000 feet wide, and 3,000 feet tall. It did not look huge from afar, but the closer they got, the more they felt that the iron coffin was like a small iron city. Around the iron coffin were 9 extremely thick grayish-black chains. They each extended to a planet. If there were no accidents, The ruler of the evil demon tribe from the other world was sealed in that huge iron coffin. Even though everyone had arrived here as they wished, it would not be easy for the evil demon powerhouses to rescue Xie Wang. That iron coffin should be made of chaotic black iron. Even a chaotic absolute treasure would have a hard time breaking it open, Tianzi said with narrowed eyes. The four-peak experts of the Skyspan Saint Island heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. These 9 planets all seem to contain vast amounts of chaos origin force. Furthermore, 9 different types of heavenly flames are burning around them. It's clear that they've formed an extremely powerful formation. Not only is it difficult to break through, it's also very dangerous, said the Eminent Holiness. Let's just watch from the side and see how they break the formation, the Shaman King said with a strange smile. Since they're here, they probably have a way to break the formation. Don't forget that they easily passed through the formation formed by the 81 stone golems earlier, Saber 9 reminded Lin Huang seriously. Let's wait and see. If they really have a way to break the formation, we'll stop them, said Son of Heaven Leon. Meanwhile, the evil demon experts were all frowning. The situation before them seemed to have surprised them and put them in a difficult position. Li Jia, you've always been quick-witted. Tell me, how do you think we should break through this formation? Shi Luo, who is over 1,500 feet tall, asked. With our strength, we can't break this formation, Li Jia said with a wry smile. Then what should we do? Have we come here for nothing? Sacrificing hundreds of millions of nefarious demon experts in exchange for nothing? Have we let Lord Xie Wang continue to suffer here? Shi Luo asked, a little agitated. We'll need Xie Wang's cooperation to break this formation. Li Jia shook his head and said, if Lord Xie Wang still has sufficient strength, we still have a chance. Most of the power of this formation should be used on the Lord Evil King. It was to seal the Lord Evil King and not to deal with the cultivators outside the formation. If we break the formation, Lord Xie Wang will be able to sense it and cooperate with us to contain the formation's power. We might be able to break the formation. Shi Luo pursed his large lips and said, Lord Xie Wang is trapped in that iron coffin now. How would he know that we're here to break the formation? Besides, Lord Xie Wang has been sealed by such a powerful formation for so many years. It's estimated that his strength is less than 1% of what it used to be. Li Jia said, we have no other choice. We can only hope that Lord Xie Wang still retains his extremely strong strength. Otherwise, unless we have a powerful magic weapon that can break the defense of a Chaos Supreme treasure, such a magic weapon can only exist in the upper realm. Since we're already here and have paid such a big price, we have to try whether there's hope or not, Shi Luo said firmly. This formation has been maintained for countless years. I think its power should be almost exhausted. However, we can't break it with brute force, Li Jia said with narrowed eyes. How are you going to break it? We don't know much about the formations of the realm of the gods, Shi Luo asked curiously. You don't know, but I do. To break this powerful formation, we have to set up a similarly powerful formation to speed up its consumption. Using a formation to break the formation, we can't use brute force. If we use brute force, I think it's useless even if we all die here, Li Jia said with a smile. Li Jia didn't know much about formations. However, in the memory of Xiao Lingyu's soul, there was the inheritance of the ancient formation master, Liao Zhou. Everything that Xiao Lingyu knew, Li Jia also knew. He only needed to digest it a little, and he could also obtain the inheritance of Liao Zhou's formation. You guys keep an eye on those top masters. I'm going to a place to study. As Li Jia said that, he disappeared from where he stood. He had entered the primal chaos spectrum. The 10,000 times faster time flow in the chaos spectrum would speed up Li Jia's digestion of Liao Zhou's inheritance. Xiao Lingyu's relatives and friends were also in the chaos spectrum. In order to prevent them from ruining his plan, Li Jia invited all of them into the chaos spectrum when he controlled Xiao Lingyu's body to leave the Huan men's encampment. Although they had a lot of opinions about Xiao Lingyu, they still had a special relationship with Xiao Lingyu. They still had to listen to Xiao Lingyu's arrangements. Seeing that Shaolin Yu had returned to the chaos spectrum, they swarmed over. However, before they could say anything, Li Jia controlled Shaolin Yu's body to find a secluded place to sit cross-legged. They could only retreat helplessly. Li Jia was originally a master with a very high realm. His comprehension ability was naturally not bad. In addition, Shaolin Yu's original memory had already digested and comprehended the inheritance of Liao Zhou. Naturally, Li Jia could quickly grasp the essence of Liao Zhou's inheritance. Shaluo and the other evil demon experts had to wait for less than 10 years before Li Jia appeared before them once more. Remove the ownership of all your storage treasures and give them to me, Li Jia instructed the evil demon powerhouses. The evil demon powerhouses did as they were told without hesitation. Li Jia and Shera did not have many treasures, but the evil demon powerhouses who had crossed over from another world had a rich collection. Furthermore, Li Jia had almost emptied the Hua Min's treasury before he arrived. Under such circumstances, Li Jia could gather all the materials he needed to set up his own formation. After taking stock of all the materials and processing them, Li Jia began to wander beyond the 9 sparks, sending the formation materials one by one into the void. They seemed to be setting up a formation, the Honorable Sage said with a frown. Breaking a formation with a formation. They have some tricks up their sleeves, but are the evil demon powerhouses also proficient in formations? Saber 9 asked, puzzled. The evil demon powerhouses aren't proficient, but that brat Shaolin Yu is. I can't believe he's colluding with the evil demon tribe. The Shaman King said with a cold smirk. They're not colluding. It's just that Xiao Daoyu's body has been taken over by the evil demon. We don't know if that evil demon has succeeded in taking over his body. If it has, Xiao Daoyu would no longer exist. Now, Xiao Daoyu is a powerhouse of the evil demon tribe, Prince Liang said, shaking his head. The worry on his face was obvious. If fellow Taoist Tianzi knew that there was something wrong with that brat, he would have informed us earlier so that we could have killed him. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a bad situation today. The myriad holies sovereign grumbled. Huh? Prince Liang merely chuckled, then said, we can't let them set up a formation and break it. Xiao Daoyu's mastery of formations isn't low. Otherwise, how could he have set up the Hua Min's 10 terminal formations? Perhaps it'll work if they break a formation with a formation. We can't sit idly by any longer. Everyone, follow me and stop them. As soon as he finished speaking, Prince Liang charged forward. The Shaman King, Saber 9, and the Honorable Sage did not hesitate, following closely behind. They had mostly recovered by now and were more or less able to fight at full strength. Stop them! Li Jia yelled at Shera and the other evil demon powerhouses. However, he himself was still setting up a formation around the 9 Mars. Shera led 3 evil demon powerhouses who had crossed over and immediately charged forward, engaging in battle with the 4 top powerhouses of Skybridge Holy Island. In a situation where Li Jia did not participate in the battle, the 2 sides were fighting in pairs. Everyone was a top-notch expert, and no one could do anything to the other in a short period of time, unless one side went all out. Although the evil demon realm's invasion back then had ended in a crushing defeat, it did not mean that they were weak. It was just that there were still many powerful beings in the God realm back then. The evil demon realm had been formed earlier than this world. Their cultivation system had long been perfected to the ultimate level. Every powerhouse was not to be trifled with. Even if the Shaman King and Saber 9 had powerful techniques, even if they went all out, they could at most gain a slight advantage over the top powerhouses of the evil demon realm. However, how could cultivators like the Shaman King and Saber 9, who already had 1 foot in the immortal realm, risk their lives so easily? Among the 4 powerhouses of Skybridge Holy Island, the most powerful one was Prince Liang, who had completed 99,999 lifetimes of cultivation. Perhaps he was the only one who was clearly more powerful than the other top powerhouses. However, Prince Liang's opponent was Shera. Shera was one of the ancient powerhouses of the evil demon tribe. Back then, within the evil demon tribe, his strength was second only to Xiaowang. Even though he had been sealed for many years, he was still extremely powerful because he was proficient in many of the evil demon tribe's ancient magical powers. Chapter 763. When one of the evil demon powerhouses was severely injured by the dozens of destructive sword gleams formed by Saber Nine's heavenly sword technique annihilation, Li Jia finally finished setting up the formation. Boundless fog instantly engulfed the 9 sparks. At the same time, the heaven and earth force in this world was drawn in and gathered continuously. It was vast and mighty, surging like a tide. What was even more shocking was that the brilliant nebula in the distant starry sky was also flowing toward them like a surging river. The stars in the vast expanse of the starry sky around them seemed even brighter. While everyone was still in shock, Saber 9 appeared very calm. He took the opportunity to expand his victory. Dozens of destructive sword gleams once again blasted the evil demon powerhouse, killing him on the spot. Saber 9 then joined up with the Shaman King, severely injuring yet another evil demon powerhouse in one fell swoop. The evil demon powerhouses were suddenly at a disadvantage. Seeing this, Shera roared loudly at the churning fog. Li Jia, we're counting on you to rescue Lord Xiaowang. Subsequently, Shera's aura began to soar wildly. Blood-red fog surged out of his body, turning into numerous demons. In an instant, countless demons bared their fangs and brandished their claws, dancing wildly. Meanwhile, the other 2 evil demon powerhouses who were already severely injured were in the same situation as Shera. Their bodies began to melt rapidly, turning into countless demons. These demons attacked Tianzi Liang and the other 3 top powerhouses of Tongtian Holy Island in a frenzy. Although they would disperse in a fog after being attacked, they would reform into new demons and continue to attack. Their attacks seemed like they would never stop. Not only that, but each attack was extremely ferocious. Although Tianzi Liang and the other powerhouses were powerful and would not be killed by these demons, they could not get close to the formation that Li Jia had set up. If they were not careful, they might even be injured. After Li Jia finished setting up the formation, he could not help but frown when he saw the situation of his fellow powerhouses. He sighed internally. Even if we rescue Lord Xiaowang, how many years will it take for our tribe to recover? The last time the entire tribe invaded, more than half of their powerhouses had been left behind. They had suffered heavy losses. Even if the demon army did not suffer any more losses this time, they had almost lost all their elite powerhouses. If they were unable to successfully rescue the evil king under such circumstances, then the evil demon race would never be able to regain their former glory. Li Jia did not think too much about it. He began to activate the formation according to his previous plan and bombarded the 9 sparks. Several powerhouses from his tribe were fighting with their lives to buy Li Jia time to break the formation. If they could not break the formation, Li would have no choice but to hide in the chaos spectrum against 4 top powerhouses at the same time. There was no other choice. The formation that Li Jia had set up this time was much more powerful than the 10-terminal formation that Shaolin Yu had set up in the Huamin's camp. For this formation, he had used almost all the celestial spiritual treasures in the Huamin's treasury, as well as hundreds of millions of psychic divine stones and countless high-grade materials. Such a large formation could also communicate with the natural power of this world. It was even more powerful. It bombarded the 9 sparks continuously, causing them to tremble constantly. In the beginning, the 9 sparks would occasionally counterattack by spraying waves of fire at the formation that Li Jia had set up. However, it did not take long for the large iron coffin to shake violently. The 9 large iron chains that were originally restraining it were now restraining the 9 sparks instead. In order to suppress the large iron coffin, the 9 sparks constantly emitted waves of fire, which rushed madly towards the large iron coffin through the 9 large iron chains. Even so, the large iron coffin was still trembling with all its might. Sure enough, Lord Xiaowang still has great strength. He also knows how to cooperate to break the formation. Li Jia's eyes lit up. The 9 sparks no longer counterattacked, so the formation that Li Jia had set up did not need to defend and could continue to bombard it with all its might. Under the bombardment of the large formation, the 9 sparks kept trembling, and their flames gradually weakened. It seemed that they would not be able to hold on for long. This lasted for nearly 3 days, and the devils that were rampaging wantonly outside the formation finally began to dissipate. The formation formed by the 9 sparks had yet to be destroyed, but the 4 top powerhouses from the Skirich Sacred Island had already rushed out. However, Li Jia was hiding in the formation that he had set up. The formation's power was too strong, so the 4 powerhouses did not dare to enter it easily. Although they did not dare to enter the array formation, Son of Heaven Liang and the other 3 powerhouses were not idle. They attacked Li Jia's array formation wildly from outside. Li Jia had already seen the hope of rescuing Xie Wang, so he naturally ignored the 4 top powerhouses outside and continued to maintain the formation to bombard the 9 sparks. The formation's power was extremely powerful, but the 4 top powerhouses' unbridled attacks could also pose a considerable threat. The formation began to be destroyed, and Li Jia had no choice but to divert part of the formation's power to resist the 4 powerhouses' bombardment. At the same time, Li Jia also changed his strategy. He no longer let the formation bombard the 9 sparks at the same time. Instead, he aimed at one of them and attacked wildly. Li Jia's strategy was quite effective. Under the formation's wild attacks, the sparks finally exploded. However, after the sparks exploded, they formed a circle of extremely strong shock waves, which dealt a heavy blow to the foundation of the formation that Li Jia had set up. Coupled with the continuous attacks of the 4 top powerhouses outside, the formation collapsed before it could blast open the second sparks. The 4 top powerhouses from the Skirich Sacred Island surrounded Li Jia in an instant and began to attack him. Li Jia had no choice but to hide in the chaos spectrum. However, the 4 top powerhouses were not ordinary cultivators. They all had ways to see the chaos spectrum and lock onto it. As long as Li Jia came out of the chaos spectrum, he would definitely be attacked. Li Jia looked outside through a light door in the chaos spectrum. He did not look at the 4 top powerhouses, but only stared at the huge iron coffin. Li Jia knew very well that the chaos spectrum was a chaos supreme treasure, and the 4 top powerhouses could not break it at all. Although the formation that Li Jia had set up was not complete, it had destroyed one of the sparks, and the loss of one of the sparks would definitely greatly weaken the power of the ceiling formation. Besides, the other 8 sparks had also suffered a heavy blow before, and their power had been seriously depleted. Under such circumstances, Li Jia felt that Lord Xie Wang should be able to break out of the seal. The 4 top powerhouses from the Skirich Sacred Island also thought so they all had complicated feelings at the moment. If they stayed here for too long, they would be in great danger if Xie Wang really broke out of the seal. However, if they left now and Xie Wang came out in a very weak state, they would lose the best opportunity to kill Xie Wang. The big iron coffin trembled more and more violently, and the broken formation's restraint on the big iron coffin became weaker and weaker. The 8 sparks also became dimmer and dimmer. Asterisk boom. Asterisk another spark exploded. Asterisk boom. Asterisk before the 4 top powerhouses from the Skirich Sacred Island could decide whether to stay or leave, the remaining 7 sparks suddenly exploded at the same time. Then, the lid of the big iron coffin was blown away, and a huge arm stretched out of the iron coffin. Waves of blood-red mist also spewed out of the big iron coffin. Alas, you left me alive just to lure the younger generation of my clan here, to kill all the elites of my clan, and to make my clan decline completely. Accompanied by a sigh, an evil demon more than 3,000 meters tall stood up from the big iron coffin. This evil demon looked similar to a human cultivator in appearance, with long red hair fluttering in the wind, like an indomitable giant. He was still wearing a set of red armor, but it was already riddled with holes and was in tatters. He should be the legendary Xie Wang. If my clan's vitality is greatly damaged, do you think I will let your world go so easily? Xia Wang walked out of the big iron coffin, and an unparalleled aura instantly shrouded the surrounding space. He looked at the four top powerhouses of the Skirich Sacred Island. Seeing this, Li Jia naturally came out of the primal chaos spectrum. The four top powerhouses were intimidated by Xia Wang's aura, and when Li Jia came out, they didn't injure him severely. Subordinate Li Jia greets Lord Xia Wang. Li Jia walked in front of Xia Wang and bowed. Li Jia, did you bring my clan's younger generation into the demon ceiling pagoda? Xia Wang asked. Yes, Li Jia replied. Where are they now? Xia Wang asked again. Replying to Lord Xia Wang, our clan's army crossed the border and went through countless bloody battles. We suffered heavy casualties. Several of our top powerhouses, including Sha Luo, died in battle. Now, some of our younger generation are still fighting outside the demon ceiling pagoda. I think most of them. Li Jia seemed to realize something and didn't continue. They're all dead? Xia Wang frowned. They died for Lord Xia Wang. They died a worthy death. Li Jia said with a sincere expression. You guys are really stupid. In order to save me, you cut off the fate of my clan and caused countless elites of my clan to die. We fell into the enemy's trap. Xia Wang said angrily. As long as Lord Xia Wang can return to the demon realm, our demon race will rise again sooner or later and regain our glory. Li Jia said confidently. You guys are thinking too simply. They purposely sealed me here in order to wait for my clan's descendants to cross over and lose their lives on this heavenly saint island. It's impossible for them to let me return to the evil devil world. The evil king shook his head and laughed bitterly. The strongest powerhouses in this world are only at the level of these four. No one can stop Lord Xia Wang from returning. Li Jia insisted. There must be. They've already calculated everything and killed our demon race. Otherwise, how could our younger generation be wiped out when they cross the border? The ancient powerhouses of this world are wise and farsighted. They must have left some means to deal with us. Let's not talk about anything else, but how we get out of this demon ceiling pagoda is a problem. There is no way out of this 9th floor, and it's inside a chaos treasure. Only the master of the demon ceiling pagoda can let us out. Chapter 764. That should be the case. Li Jia replied. If this demon ceiling tower is still ownerless, then we only have one way out, and that is to make the demon ceiling tower recognize us as its master. Xia Wang first looked at the four top powerhouses, then continued. Even without us, it will be very difficult for the four of them to gain the demon ceiling tower's recognition. How can we gain the demon ceiling tower's recognition? Li Jia asked, puzzled. This demon ceiling tower is a Chaos Supreme treasure made of Chaos Black Iron, and a Chaos Supreme treasure cannot be forced to recognize its master. It will only recognize its master if it recognizes its master. Of course, ordinary cultivators have a chance to gain the recognition of a Chaos Supreme treasure, but the probability is too small. Only cultivators with Chaos energy can gain the recognition of a Chaos Supreme treasure more easily. Xia Wang explained. Li Jia's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he said, this subordinate's body just happens to have Chaos energy, and it is very pure and high grade. The master of this subordinate's body originally had a Chaos Supreme treasure. Xia Wang smiled and said, based on the current situation, it seems that the situation is very favorable for us. You have Chaos energy, so you should be able to gain the Demon Ceiling Tower's recognition. Then, the Demon Ceiling Tower will be occupied by you, and we can easily leave the Demon Ceiling Tower and return to the Demon Realm. Li Jia nodded and said, this is the heavens helping us demons. Xia Wang coldly snorted and said, how can it be so simple? All of this is a trap. What? Li Jia was very surprised. In their world, nothing can be thought of as simple, and it can't be explained by coincidence. For example, why did you take over his body and not someone else? Why did you have to possess a cultivator with chaotic force and not some other cultivator? Why can you control this body, but but can erase the consciousness of the original master of this body. Xiao Wang asked again and again. After being reminded by Xiao Wang, Li Jia frowned slightly and seemed to be a little suspicious. They sealed me here so that the children of my race could cross over to save me and inflict heavy losses on my race. After these 2 invasions, my clan has already lost all of its elites and exhausted all of its resources. As long as we are erased, my evil devil realm will forever lose the strength to invade other realms and will even gradually decline to the point of destruction. Now, their scheme is already more than half complete, and the master recognition of the demon sealing tower is most likely the last step of their plan. Xiao Wang's expression was cold, and his face was filled with hatred as he said, "If I'm not wrong, after this body of yours is recognized by the demon sealing tower as its master, you will definitely be erased. Your remnant soul will dissipate forever, and you will no longer be able to control this body. The owner of this body will regain control of this body and use the power of the demon sealing pagoda to kill me here." Li Jia's face was filled with shock as he said, "If all of this is within their calculations, then their schemes are truly too terrifying." Xiao Wang smiled bitterly and said, "If it weren't for their far-sighted schemes, how could my evil devil realm be defeated so easily? How could I be sealed in this demon sealing tower? They are crafty and cunning, and it's really impossible to guard against them. Under normal circumstances, I have been sealed for many years, and you have fought so hard to get here, so you definitely wouldn't hesitate to make the demon sealing tower recognize you as its master. They expected that we would be extremely anxious at this moment and wouldn't think too much." Li Jia immediately praised. "Fortunately, Lord Xiao Wang is wise. If I was really wise, I wouldn't have led all of you to charge into their 9 heavens nirvana formation with my hot-bloodedness." Xiao Wang shook his head and said, "However, even though they have calculated everything, it's still not a perfect plan. Lord, you should have a way to leave, right?" Li Jia asked. "There's only one way to try." Xiao Wang stared at Li Jia and said, "You try to make the demon sealing tower recognize you as its master. Why don't I do it?" "But Lord, you're not a chaotic cultivator." As soon as he said this, Li Jia's body trembled. He seemed to have thought of something and looked at Xiao Wang in surprise and fear. "Lord, you mean?" The evil king nodded and said, "That's right. With me controlling this body, no matter what the demon sealing tower has set up, it will be very difficult to heavily injure me. It's much safer than you trying to control this body." "But what, you don't want to?" Without waiting for Li Jia to speak, Xiao Wang narrowed his eyes and his gaze became fierce. "I am willing." Li Jia's words were firm, but his expression was very complicated. Li Jia knew that if Xiao Wang took over Shaolin Yu's body, he would definitely have to leave by himself. However, his remnant soul had already fused with Shaolin Yu's soul and could not leave. In this way, Xiao Wang would have to occupy both Li Jia's and Shaolin Yu's souls and erase their original consciousness. With Xiao Wang's temper, he would never share his body with others. However, Xiao Wang was right. If he personally controlled this body, even if there were any dangerous arrangements in the demon sealing tower, Xiao Wang was more confident than Li Jia in overcoming them. After all, the demon sealing tower could only seal Xiao Wang and not kill him. There are still 4 foreign experts here. Should we get rid of them first? Otherwise, they will definitely take advantage of your possession to attack, Li Jia said to Xiao Wang. Of course, Xiao Wang replied. Then, he looked at the 4 top experts and transmitted his voice to Li Jia. The 4 of them are not ordinary people. Each of them has a very powerful divine sense and should not be underestimated. If it was in the past, even if they joined forces, they would not be a threat to me at all. However, I have been sealed for countless years after all. In order to break out of the formation, I have consumed a lot of energy. Most importantly, in the world of the demon sealing tower, it is impossible to use the strength of the immortal realm. It is too difficult to take them down. Then what should we do? Li Jia asked again. I can still hold on for a while. I will deal with them, and you will set up the formation. We will use the power of the formation to finish them off. Xiao Wang said. Yes, sir. Li Jia replied respectfully. The four top experts of the Tongtian Holy Island could not detect Xiao Wang's real situation. Although Xiao Wang's armor seemed to be in tatters, his aura was extremely strong. Therefore, they did not dare to act rashly. They could only watch from afar. After Xiao Wang and Li Jia decided on a plan, he suddenly opened his arms. A powerful and strange aura fluctuation rippled out from his body. Then, a blood-red mist gushed out from his body and quickly turned into countless demons. Before the four top experts of the Tongtian Holy Island could react, the countless demons had already surrounded them. Li Jia, set up the formation faster. Xiao Wang whispered to Li Jia. Li Jia did not dare to delay. He first went to collect the materials and magic treasures that were left behind after the formation collapsed. Then, he surrounded the space occupied by the countless demons and set up the formation. After spending 2 hours, Li Jia finally finished setting up the formation. Xiao Wang, who no longer released demons, looked a little pale. His aura was not as strong as before. The four top experts of the Tongtian Holy Island who were trapped by the formation naturally tried their best to defend themselves while constantly bombarding the formation in an attempt to break out. Your formation doesn't seem to be very strong. Looking at the trembling formation, Xiao Wang seemed a little dissatisfied. I've done my best. Previously, in order to help you break out of the seal, I used up a lot of the best materials for setting up the formation. Li Jia said helplessly, if I were to preside over this formation, I would be able to increase its power a lot. However, I have to help you subdue the demon sealing tower. I'm afraid I can't preside over the formation here. Xiao Wang did not blame him anymore. He said, although the formation is not strong, it can still trap them for a while. Let's go and make the demon sealing tower recognize us as its master. After saying that, Xiao Wang turned around and floated away. Li Jia followed closely behind. Not long after, Xiao Wang brought Li Jia to the big iron coffin. At this time, although the big iron coffin still looked heavy and huge, the runes engraved on the surface were no longer flowing. As for the huge coffin lid, it was still quietly floating not far away. If I'm not wrong, this iron coffin and the demon sealing tower should be one. If you want the demon sealing tower to recognize you as its master, you can only start with this, Xiao Wang said as he stared at the big iron coffin. Isn't it in the world of the demon sealing tower? How can it be one with the demon sealing tower? Li Jia was a little confused. I don't understand this either, but it should be a special kind of magic, Xiao Wang replied. Then how can you make it recognize you as its master? Li Jia asked again. Why are you asking so many questions? Xiao Wang shifted his gaze to Li Jia. His eyes were very sharp, as if he could see through Li Jia's soul. Li Jia hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at Xiao Wang. Haha, chaos treasures are very spiritual, and they are more compatible with chaos force. As long as you release chaos force to it and try to communicate with it with your mind, you have a great chance of gaining its recognition and then making it recognize you as its master. Xiao Wang explained with a smile, then continued. There's not much time left. I'm going to start. Hearing this, Li Jia couldn't help but take a step back. He was different from Sha Luo. Although he was very loyal to Xiao Wang, he wasn't willing to die in vain for Xiao Wang. In the face of death, he also had a deep fear. Li Jia had been hiding in the form of a remnant soul for many years, enduring patiently until now. It wasn't easy for him to occupy a good body and have the hope of continuing to live and cultivate. He really couldn't let all his efforts go to waste. His mind raced. After a moment, Li Jia closed his eyes and pretended to relax his mind to cooperate with Evil King. When Evil King pointed at him with a finger that was even thicker than his head, he suddenly opened the vertical eye at the center of his brows. At such a critical moment, Xiao Lingyu didn't cause trouble. He even cooperated with Li Jia to deal with Xiao Wang. A destructive, bloody light shot out from the vertical eye between his eyebrows and blasted Xiao Wang's finger. In an instant, Xiao Wang's palm exploded. Chapter 765. However, in the next moment, Li Jia suddenly disappeared from where he was. At this critical moment, Li Jia hid in the chaos spectrum. If it weren't for the chaos spectrum, he might not have had the courage to disobey Xia Wang's order. Humph! Let's see how you deal with the 4 top powerhouses when they break out of the array. Li Jia said with a gloomy face. Xia Wang stood quietly in front of the big iron coffin and looked at the void in front of him. His expression was very ugly. Without casting any magic, Xia Wang waved his arm gently in front of him, and the chaos spectrum that was hidden in the void was revealed. Li Jia, I advise you to come out now. I can let you be reborn in my body without erasing your soul consciousness. Xia Wang's voice came into the chaos spectrum. After waiting for a while, Li Jia didn't show any signs of leaving the chaos spectrum. Xia Wang continued. Even if it's a chaos treasure, it can't let you be protected. Then, Xia Wang grabbed the chaos spectrum in his hand, closed his eyes, and began to recite a spell. Oh no, it's the evil curse of alien space. Li Jia said in horror. Is this curse very powerful? Xiaoling Yu asked curiously. The current situation was a bit complicated, but the more complicated it was, the more advantageous it was for him who was relatively weak. It is very powerful. With this evil curse, the heretic king was able to capture my soul. When the heretic king was training us, he had checked our souls countless times. He was very familiar with our souls. His otherworldly soul, capturing evil curse, is the most effective against us. No matter where we are, he can easily capture our souls and bring them to his side. He used this evil curse to capture those traitors who escaped from his side. Li Jia explained. Fortunately, the flow of time in the chaos spectrum was 10,000 times faster than the outside world. Outside, Xia Wang needed 10 minutes to cast the evil curse of alien space. But in the chaos spectrum, thousands of hours could pass. Is there any way to deal with it? Xiaoling Yu asked. No, I can only try my best to improve my strength, and then go out to fight with him. Li Jia shook his head. You only have so little time. No matter how much you improve, it's not enough for you to defeat Xia Wang, right? Xiaoling Yu said calmly. That's not necessarily true. I did something to the array I set up. I'm afraid that they have already broken out of the array. They will also cause a lot of trouble for Xia Wang, Li Jia said with a sinister smile. Sure enough, through the light door of the chaos spectrum, one could see that Xia Wang, who was still chanting, suddenly turned his head and looked elsewhere. As for increasing my strength, there's only one way in such a short time. As Li Jia spoke, he looked at the girls in the chaos spectrum and said to Xiaoling Yu, You're lucky again this time. I'm warning you, don't scare me. If I don't do this, we will all die in front of Xia Wang, even if you don't make trouble at the critical moment. We have no other choice. Li Jia did not wait for Xiaoling Yu to finish speaking. He quickly walked in front of the girls and said straightforwardly, I need the virgins among you to cooperate with me for dual cultivation once. This will increase our strength to deal with the evil king. Hearing this, Jiang Lanyue couldn't help but take a step back. Jiang Lanchong snorted coldly. Are you that evil spirit? Anya stepped forward and asked. I'm your husband. Li Jia's expression didn't change. There wasn't much time left. He didn't want to waste any more time. He grabbed Jiang Lanyue, who just stepped back, and said, Your sister has already offered her body. It's your turn now. I don't want to. Even if I die, I don't want to. Jiang Lanyue refused firmly. Let me do it. I'll cooperate. To everyone's surprise, Ling also stepped forward and took the initiative to ask for permission. This time, the dual cultivation was also very important. Li Jia didn't want any accidents to happen. It would be best if the target of the dual cultivation could cooperate. He hesitated for a moment and let go of Jiang Lanyue, saying, Come with me. In a secluded place in the chaos spectrum, Linger slowly took off his clothes one by one. His face was expressionless, as if there were no emotional fluctuations at all. Linger's body was as smooth as jade. It was crystal clear like jade. Not only was her body graceful, but it also looked like a work of art. There were no traces of carving. It was completely natural. Even though Xiao Lingyu hated the evil spirit Li Jia's methods, when he saw standing in front of him like this, he couldn't help but have some greedy thoughts. Li Jia was even more straightforward. He shook his body, and the clothes on his body were all shattered. Then, like a hungry tiger, he hugged the naked Ling but didn't resist. In fact, with her special ability, if she didn't want to, no one could force her. She was invisible, and even the top masters couldn't detect her. Ling pretended to be very calm and indifferent. However, when she was really pressed under Xiao Lingyu's body, she could feel the strong masculine aura coming from him. A few beads of sweat appeared on her forehead, and her face and skin were already flushed red. When Xiao Lingyu's hands wandered around her body without restraint, Ling twisted her body uncomfortably, and a low moan came from her mouth. After all, she was still a girl in body and mind. There wasn't much prelude. Xiao Lingyu's lower body was already erect. After a little deeper, he was enveloped by a wave of warmth. All kinds of feelings were transmitted into the depths of Xiao Lingyu's soul consciousness. It actually made him feel like he didn't want to resist Li Jia anymore. Their mouths kissed, their tongues intertwined, and they hugged each other tightly. As they gradually entered the best state, the dual cultivation technique began to operate. Waves of extremely pure, chaotic, divine power flowed from Xiao Lingyu's body into Ling Er's. It circulated in Ling Er's body and led Ling Er's power back to Xiao Lingyu's body. After circulating in Xiao Lingyu's body, it became even purer. Ling Er, it was indeed very cooperative. Not only did she coordinate her power, but she also responded to the essence of her flesh and blood. The enhancement of her power and body essence was completed very quickly. Next was the enhancement of her soul realm. This was an even more crucial step. Although Jiang Lanyue wasn't very cooperative last time, the difference between Jiang Lanyue's realm and Xiao Lingyu's and Li Jia's realm was too great. Moreover, there was nothing special about Jiang Lanyue's realm, so she couldn't resist at all. However, Ling was different. The difference between her soul realm and Xiao Lingyu's and Li Jia's was not as great as the difference between Jiang Lanyue's and Xiao Lingyu's. Moreover, her soul was too special. Firstly, it was because she had devoured illusionary spirits. Secondly, her soul was formed by Xiao Lingyu's spell. The original memories and consciousness in her soul were all given to her by Xiao Lingyu. Li Jia also knew this, but he was confident that there wouldn't be any problems. Even if Ling waited for an opportunity to resist, the only thing she could hurt was Xiao Lingyu's consciousness. The intertwining of their souls gradually became more and more intense. At the last moment of the dual cultivation technique, Xiao Lingyu's body suddenly stiffened after a round of charging forward. She even let out a low groan. Xiao Lingyu and Ling Er's power and life essence rapidly circulated in their bodies at this moment. The extreme pleasure was about to reach its peak. Then, their souls, which were originally intertwined, began to climb crazily. They merged and separated again and again. During the last collision, Ling actually poured all of her soul power into Xiao Lingyu's consciousness. Not only did she not leave after the collision, but she also violently attacked Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl. From the previous dual cultivation, Ling could confirm that Xiao Lingyu's body hadn't been invaded by the evil spirit. Then, the problem could only be in her soul. At the end of the dual cultivation, their souls merged. Ling could clearly sense that Xiao Lingyu's soul was being suppressed. The evil spirit had stolen the greatest benefit of the dual cultivation technique. Xiao Lingyu's soul could enjoy the pleasure, but it couldn't improve much. After understanding this, Ling wanted to use all of her soul power to help Xiao Lingyu turn the situation around. Xiao Lingyu also began to counterattack fiercely when she noticed Ling Er's actions. At this moment, Ling Er's soul attack was on the outside, while Xiao Lingyu's soul counterattack was on the inside of the Golden Soul Pearl. This could be said to be a coordinated attack. Naturally, the power of the attack was greatly increased. Most importantly, this was the final moment of the dual cultivation technique. It was also the last moment before the dual cultivation technique ended. At this critical moment, Ling suddenly stopped cooperating. It was as if he had forcefully stopped the dual cultivation technique, just as both of them were about to improve greatly. This would cause both of them to suffer a heavy blow at this moment. Ling had been too cooperative at the beginning, causing Li Jia to let down his guard. At the last moment, Li Jia also had to let down his mental defenses in order to improve greatly. Li Jia didn't expect that Ling would give up the huge benefits of improving his soul and attack him at the risk of damaging his soul. Ling soul was severely injured because of the sudden termination of the dual cultivation technique. Li Jia, who wanted to use the dual cultivation technique to improve himself, was also in the same situation. In fact, his injury was even more severe. As Li Jia was too greedy, he didn't allow Xiao Lingyu's soul to participate at the final moment. Instead, he allowed Xiao Lingyu to only be slightly shaken. In summary, Li Jia, who was originally invaded by a remnant soul, lost control of Xiao Lingyu's soul in an instant. His remnant soul's invasiveness and extensibility were also reduced at the same time. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu regained control of her body and the golden soul pearl. Then, she guided Ling soul power to fuse with her own soul and completed the last step of the dual cultivation technique. All of this took a long time to describe, but it was actually completed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Lingyu's and Ling souls quickly fused together. Under Xiao Lingyu's intentional control and Ling active cooperation, both of their souls were rapidly increasing. The explosive power was all focused on attacking Li Jia's remnant soul. After all, Li Jia was a powerful being from the ancient devil world. Even though he was in the state of a remnant soul, he wouldn't be easily defeated. He was still holding on under the immense pressure. Chapter 766. However, when Ling soul displayed a special and powerful devouring ability, Li Jia knew that he was done for. Li Jia's remnant soul was severely injured, and with Xiao Lingyu's soul power, which had been greatly enhanced by the dual cultivation technique, causing trouble, not only was Li Jia's remnant soul unable to protect itself, it was also constantly being devoured. Every time a part of his remnant soul was devoured, a part of Li Jia's consciousness would disappear, and his cultivation level would also plummet. Although the last step of the dual cultivation technique was quickly completed, Li Jia had already lost the ability to fight against Xiao Lingyu and Ling He could only wait for his death. In less than 100 breaths of time, Li Jia's remnant soul was completely devoured. The dual cultivation technique had been completed, and the evil spirit Li Jia's remnant soul had also been dealt with. Ling who had obtained great benefits, immediately withdrew her soul. Xiao Lingyu and Ling returned to normal and opened their eyes at the same time. Ling felt very unnatural. She twisted her body and tried to break free from Xiao Lingyu's embrace. However, Xiao Lingyu smiled and hugged Ling even tighter. In the past, Xiao Lingyu treated Ling as his younger sister, but after all, the two of them were not related by blood. Now that the two of them were husband and wife, Ling could be shy and unnatural, but Xiao Lingyu could not. Otherwise, their future days would be even more awkward. Not only did he hug Ling tightly, but Xiao Lingyu did not even leave Ling body. Furthermore, he kissed the corner of Ling lips. Ling knew that Xiao Lingyu had already recovered, so she could accept this intimate moment more easily. Seeing that Xiao Lingyu was still very interested, she could not bear to reject him. She closed her eyes again and hugged Xiao Lingyu's waist with her arms. Her hands gently stroked Xiao Lingyu's back. Another storm of clouds and torrential rain. Another round of inseparable entanglement. Xiao Lingyu didn't have the slightest interest in watching the battle outside. After all, her relatives and friends were all in the chaos spectrum. Only 2 or 3 days had passed in the primal chaos spectrum. Outside the primal chaos spectrum, where the flow of time was 10,000 times slower, Xie Wang had yet to cast the deviant space soul capturing curse. Xiao Lingyu still had time to digest the benefits and improvements brought about by this dual cultivation. She had time to adapt to the body that originally belonged to her, but had been occupied by Li Jia for a period of time. It didn't disturb Xiao Lingyu's cultivation. She put on a new light green dress and walked in front of the girls. All the girls gathered around her. Seeing that Linger didn't show any change in her expression, they couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. Don't worry, he has already regained control of his body, and that evil spirit has also been exterminated, Linger said calmly. That's great. Qing Xian, Miao Ying, and Anya praised at the same time. Jiang Lanyue and her sister's expressions were a lot more complicated. As for Yueru, she just frowned slightly. He didn't do that to you, right? Miao Ying asked tentatively. Ling naturally understood what Miao Ying was referring to. She smiled and said, everything I have belongs to him. Everyone naturally understood what Linger meant. They didn't need to ask any more questions to guess the answer. However, compared to Jiang Lanyue, her sister, and Yueru, Xiao Lingyu's 3 original wives were more accepting of Linger. After all, Ling had been with Xiao Lingyu for many years. Moreover, Linger had also been with them for many years. They understood each other better and were more compatible with each other. As long as he's fine, everything is fine. Anya heaved a sigh of relief. What's fine? Ugh. Jiang Lanchang still seemed to be angry. Just as she was about to say a few more words, her mouth was blocked by her sister, Jiang Lanyue. At this point, Anya, Qing Xian, and Miao Ying felt too embarrassed. As Xiao Lingyu's wives, they naturally didn't want to see Xiao Lingyu being blamed by the girl. They didn't want to see Xiao Lingyu feel guilty towards the girl. Thus, after pondering for a moment, Anya said, on behalf of this big family, I also welcome you to join us. In reality, Xiao Lingyu already had 5 wives. What was a few more? Everyone could see that Jiang Lanyue and Yueru had some feelings for Xiao Lingyu. Although Xiao Lingyu didn't say it out loud, as long as they agreed, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't refuse. Only Jiang Lanchang didn't have a good impression of Xiao Lingyu. However, she couldn't change the fact that she had already become Xiao Lingyu's woman. If Jiang Lanyue mediated and persuaded her, Jiang Lanchang would have no choice but to accept this fact. After all, although she didn't have any feelings for Xiao Lingyu, she didn't have anyone she liked. The time it took to brew a cup of tea outside was half a year in the chaotic spectrum. When Xiao Lingyu adjusted his condition to the peak, he looked outside through a light door. There was already a fierce battle outside. The 4 top powerhouses of Tongtian's sacred island each used their divine powers to fight with the extremely weak Xie Wang. As for Xie Wang's otherworldly soul-capturing curse, it was only effective on Li Jia. Since Li Jia had already died, his curse could only be abandoned. Saber 9 used the heavenly sword technique, drawing out dozens of destructive sword lights that enveloped heaven and earth. The Shaman King's body was wrapped in a strange red mist. He kept forming sets of even stranger witchcraft divine powers. The Lord of all Saints was clad in golden armor and held a golden spear in his hand. He looked like an invincible general in an army of 10,000. His golden spear spewed out beams of light that were hundreds of feet long. Its power was astonishing. Although Tianzi Liang was sitting cross-legged, his body's position was erratic and constantly changing. Divine light constantly shot out from his eyes. He was probably launching a relatively powerful soul attack. The 4 top powerhouses each had their own strengths. None of their attacks could be blocked by ordinary cultivators. Xie Wang's divine powers were unparalleled. Even in his weakened state, he was still undefeated. Whether it was the destructive sword lights, the strange witchcraft divine powers, the golden spear light, or Tianzi Liang's soul attack, none of them seemed to have much effect on him. With a wave of his hand, thousands of demons whizzed out and blocked all the attacks. Originally, Xiao Lingyu could have stayed in the chaotic spectrum and waited for the 4 top powerhouses to wear down Xie Wang's strength. Then he would go out and fight. However, he felt that it was better to go out and fight immediately. If the 4 top powerhouses were injured or killed by Xie Wang, he might not be able to defeat Xie Wang. Shaolin Yu came out of the chaotic spectrum and launched the destructive bloodlight at Xie Wang without hesitation. As Shaolin Yu's appearance was too sudden, Xie Wang was caught off guard and was hit by the destructive bloodlight. In an instant, his left shoulder was blown into a bloody mist. But what surprised Shaolin Yu was that the blood mist that had originally exploded actually gathered again after that. The evil king's left shoulder that had been blown away was actually strangely restored to its original state, and it seemed as if it had not suffered any injuries at all. "You're courting death." Xie Wang noticed Shaolin Yu's existence. However, before he could launch an attack on Shaolin Yu hid in the chaotic spectrum again. After entering the chaotic spectrum, Shaolin Yu began to madly absorb the energy in the divine psychic stone. When his power recovered, he came out of the chaotic spectrum again and launched the destructive heavenly eye at Xie Wang. Shaolin Yu took a lot of time to recover, but in reality, only a breath's time had passed in the outside world. This made it seem as if he had just disappeared and then reappeared again. Xie Wang's large hand had just slapped over. Before he could retract it, it was blasted into a bloody mist by the destructive bloodlight. Then, it quickly gathered again. The four top experts were very cooperative. When they saw how powerful Shaolin Yu's attack was, they used all their strength to prevent Xie Wang from moving too quickly. This prevented him from dodging Shaolin Yu's attack. They could not defeat the powerful Xie Wang in a short period of time. However, they could still prevent Xie Wang from increasing his speed. Neither they nor Shaolin Yu believed that Xie Wang, whose body had been severely injured time and time again, could be completely unharmed. Xie Wang knew his own situation. He knew very well that if this battle continued, he would be tortured to death here. Therefore, Xie Wang could not let the battle continue as the enemy wanted. Evil Ancestor's forbidden space curse. After he let out an angry roar, waves of evil mist surged out of his body. This mist was also blood red. However, it was different in that it was faintly glowing. After it surged out of his body, it quickly gathered together and revealed the illusory figures of tall, evil spirits. These tall, evil devil phantoms were the remnant spirits left behind by many powerful evil kings of the evil devil clan who had died by accident. They had been preserved by the evil devil clan's forbidden technique and passed down to the evil kings of the evil devil clan. They would only come out when their lives were in danger. When they appeared, Xie Wang's combat strength would increase greatly. Unfortunately, when the evil demon tribe invaded Heavenly Saint Island, Xie Wang fell into their trap. He was sealed in the demon sealing tower before he could fight with all his strength. Now that they appeared, their auras soared into the sky. They still had some intelligence and combat awareness. When Shaolin Yu came out of the chaotic spectrum again, they instantly sealed this space. Shaolin Yu had just unleashed a destructive blood-red glow when he lost his connection with the chaotic spectrum. He could no longer hide in it. He could only take out the Terminator dagger and prepare to fight with his life on the line. Not only that, the space pressure in the space sealed by the remnant spirits of the evil demon ancestor was extremely high. Shaolin Yu and the other four top powerhouses of Heavenly Saint Island felt as if they were carrying a heavy mountain. It was difficult for them to move quickly. With the favorable situation reversed, the faces of the four top powerhouses turned solemn. Although the evil demon tribe and I have fallen into a trap, and although the evil demon tribe is going to decline, your world won't have it easy either. Although Xie Wang's words were sonorous and full of vigor, he seemed to have aged considerably after releasing the remnant spirits of the evil demon ancestor. His body was trembling continuously. He had relied on the remnant spirits of the evil demon ancestor to survive for so many years in that large iron coffin. Now that the remnant spirits had left his body, he was even weaker than before. As he spoke, Xie Wang sent a palm strike towards Saber 9. The palm strike covered heaven and earth. Saber 9, who could not move quickly, could only form a ring of sword energy around his body to block it. In an instant, the sword energy shattered, and Saber 9 retreated, spitting blood. The other powerhouses did not sit around and wait. They attacked together with Shaolin Yu, and all of their attacks hit the gigantic Xiaowang. However, due to the evil demon ancestor's forbidden space curse, their attacks were not that powerful. Chapter 767. Xiaowang unleashed 5 consecutive palm strikes. The 4 top powerhouses of Tongtian Holy Island and Shaolin Yu were unable to take the blows head-on and were sent retreating with injuries. Shaolin Yu and the other powerhouses had completely lost their ability to fight back under the seal of the evil progenitor's remnant spirits. After all, the sealing power would not affect Xiaowang. You idiots are nothing but pawns. Even if I can't escape this demon sealing tower, even if I die here, you're nothing but sacrifices to accompany me in death. Xiaowang did not stop. Not only that, but he was also lecturing them. Xiaowang's attacks were not considered very powerful. This might have something to do with his current condition. However, even if they were not that powerful, they could still withstand 1 or 2 attacks. They would lose their lives if they were hit a few more times. Since Xiaowang had already shown his trump card, it was normal for the 4 top powerhouses to be beaten so pathetically. As everyone had expected, this battle was going to be a tough one. Since they were all trapped in this galaxy, they had no other choice but to fight to the death. Fellow Taoist Tianzi, this is all the 3 of us can do. You can't hold back anymore. That's right, fellow Taoist Tianzi. Right now, only your divine ability of heaven and earth can help us get through this. The situation is critical. There's no time to waste. Saber 9, the Shaman King, and the Venerable of All Saints spoke one after another. From the blood at the corners of their mouths, one could tell that they had indeed given it their all. Tianzi Liang did not reply. He merely wiped the blood at the corners of his mouth with his tattered white robe, then straightened his body abruptly. However, he sent a voice transmission to Shaolin Yu. I can only buy you 100 breaths of time. Use this time to communicate with the demon sealing tower. You must make it recognize you as its master. This is our last hope. Tianzi, Tianzi, Tianzi Liang shouted as Xiaowang attacked Saber 9 with another palm strike. His aura began to soar wildly. Tianzi Liang was already at the peak of advanced stage Tongtian Holy Island. Now that his aura had soared after almost 100,000 rebirths, it was only natural that he could break through Tongtian Holy Island and enter immortal level. Of course, this kind of forceful breakthrough to the immortal realm could only be said to be a pseudo-immortal realm expert. It did not possess the power of a true immortal realm expert. However, when the Son of Heaven's aura increased to a certain level, the evil ancestor forbidden space curse that Xiaowang had used was ineffective against him. His divine sense penetrated the seal and quickly extended to every corner of this galaxy. He then guided the natural power of this galaxy to surge towards his body. The mighty force of nature continuously weakened the power of the evil ancestor's forbidden space curse, causing it to gradually lose its effectiveness and suppress the remnant spirits of the evil devil race's ancestors. The other 3 top experts gradually regained their freedom. They once again besieged Xiaowang. Even so, Xiaowang was still strong enough to hold on for a while. Brother Xiao, it's time to make a move. The Son of Heaven Liang, on the other hand, could not hold on for long. He sent a telepathic message to Shaolin Yu, who was still marveling at her supernatural power. Shaolin Yu approached the large iron coffin immediately. Xiaowang wanted to block her, but Saber 9 and the other top experts tried their best to stop her. Xiaowang, who had released his ancestor's remnant spirit, dared not underestimate the attacks of Saber 9 and the other powerhouses. He could not divert his attention to Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu arrived before the large iron coffin and released the chaos divine power in her body with all her might to make contact with the large iron coffin. Her mind also surged with the chaos divine power in an attempt to communicate with the demon sealing tower spirituality. In the beginning, the large iron coffin did not react at all. However, after 20 breaths, the large iron coffin began to tremble. After 50 breaths, the large iron coffin released a strange wave that scanned Xiao Lingyu's body. After 80 breaths, the strange wave disappeared all of a sudden. The large iron coffin shrunk rapidly. Within a few breaths, it turned into a black iron battle armor that automatically covered Xiao Lingyu's body. What was even stranger was that Son of Heaven Liang and the other top powerhouses had all disappeared. What Xiao Lingyu did not know was that Son of Heaven Liang and the other 3 powerhouses had revealed themselves outside the demon ceiling tower at the moment. They also looked shocked and puzzled. It seems like Xiao Daoyu has been acknowledged by the demon ceiling tower and has become its master, Son of Heaven Liang said with narrowed eyes. That should be the case. Since the demon ceiling tower has a master, it's only natural that we'd be expelled. The Lord of All Saints nodded in agreement. But why hasn't Xiao Wang been expelled? The Shaman King asked, puzzled. After all, Xiao Wang is an existence that the demon ceiling tower wants to seal. He's not dead yet, so naturally, the demon ceiling tower won't let him out so easily, Son of Heaven Liang explained. That brat has been acknowledged by the demon ceiling tower. He should be able to kill Xiao Wang easily, Saber 9 said with a sigh of relief. If everything goes as planned, that should be the case, Son of Heaven Liang said optimistically as well. After the 4 top powerhouses left, the demonic ancestors' forbidden space curse was unleashed again without the suppression of the omnipotent divine ability. Unfortunately, this extremely powerful curse had no effect on Xiao Lingyu, who was wearing the mystical iron battle armor at all. Most importantly, Xiao Lingyu had been acknowledged by the demon ceiling tower. In this galaxy, he could easily borrow the natural power of heaven and earth to fight his enemies. Xiao Wang had changed his spell. He no longer had the demonic ancestors' remnant spirits form the forbidden space curse. Instead, he had them attack Xiao Lingyu together with him. However, the mystical iron battle armor's defense was extremely powerful. Although Xiao Lingyu could not use the battle armor as he wished, he was not damaged at all even after being hit repeatedly. Meanwhile, Xiao Lingyu's destruction blood ray that he unleashed from time to time could always injure Xiao Wang or defeat one of the demonic ancestors' remnant spirits. Xiao Wang's ability was getting weaker and weaker, and his condition was deteriorating as well. He collapsed with a loud crash after holding on for less than 4 hours. Even if it's you, you're still just a pawn after all. You cowards. Apart from using tricks, can't you fight fair and square? Xiao Wang died in the end with an extremely sorrowful tone. His first sentence was meant for Xiao Lingyu, while the last sentence was probably meant for the demon ceiling tower's original master. Xiao Lingyu did not think too much about it at the moment. After all, Xiao Wang might not be telling the truth. Everything that had happened might just be a coincidence. He immediately invited the foodie out and got him to devour Xiao Wang's body. Since Xiao Wang was such a powerful existence, the foodie's ability would definitely increase greatly after devouring his body. He might even reach the immortal realm in one go. Xiao Lingyu thought of something. After the foodie devoured Xiao Wang's body, he would fall into a deep sleep for a period of time. Since he was not sleeping in the chaotic spectrum where time flowed 10,000 times faster, the foodie would need a long time to wake up this time. However, what he did not expect was that after Xiao Wang's body was completely devoured and the foodie had just fallen asleep, the mystical iron battle armor that originally covered his entire body turned into a large iron coffin once again. Meanwhile, he and the foodie were lying inside the large iron coffin. Most importantly, the lid of the large iron coffin was closed again at this moment. In other words, Xiao Lingyu was also sealed. However, when Xiao Lingyu was sealed, the chaotic spectrum was not in his body. At this moment, it should be outside the iron coffin. Xiao Lingyu could not get in touch with it at all. After waiting for less than 10 minutes in the large iron coffin, Xiao Lingyu tried to get in touch with the demon ceiling pagoda again. However, the only response he got was the foodie's snoring sound. What does this mean? Could it be that all of this was really set up by some almighty person and I'm just a chess piece? Could it be that he wants to get rid of me after I've outlived my usefulness? I've completed all of his arrangements. Is he going to get rid of me, a chess piece? The space inside the large iron coffin was not small. Xiao Lingyu walked around the foodie while thinking quietly. But if he wants to kill me, why isn't there any movement at all? After waiting for a long time, the large iron coffin was still quiet. Xiao Lingyu became even more suspicious. After a few more years, Xiao Lingyu suddenly realized that the foodie's entire body should have been glowing with chaotic light. However, at this moment, there were bursts of strange blood-red light within the chaotic light. Bursts of demonic aura seeped out of the foodie's body as well. Xiao Lingyu did not pay too much attention to it. He thought that this might be because Xie Wang was too powerful and contained too much demonic energy in his body. That was why the foodie could not absorb all of it, or perhaps it was because it was difficult for him to do so. After being sealed for close to 1,000 years, Xiao Lingyu did not see any movement from the large iron coffin at all. Only then did he settle down and enter a state of cultivation. Naturally, his main focus was on the cultivation methods after the 9th revolution. Since he had nothing to do, instead of being pessimistic and hopeless, he might as well figure out the 10th revolution method. Meanwhile, outside the demon sealing tower, Tianzi Liang and the other 3 top powerhouses had lost their patience to continue waiting. The Lord of All Saints had returned to the Sacred Mountain. Saber 9 had returned to the 10,000 Sword Mountain, and the Shaman King was nowhere to be found. Tianzi Liang felt that something was amiss. He entered the demon sealing tower again. However, he was blocked by the 81 stonemen powerhouses who formed a powerful formation at the staircase from the 8th floor to the 9th floor. He could not go to the 9th floor again. When Tianzi Liang came out of the demon sealing tower, the Peacock Bright Monarch and the other earth powerhouses happened to fly over as well. They asked Tianzi Liang about the situation on the 9th floor of the demon sealing tower. Naturally, Tianzi Liang did not hide anything from them. He told the earth powerhouses about the important points. Since Xiao Lingyu has obtained the demon sealing tower's approval, why hasn't he come out yet? The Peacock Bright Monarch asked in confusion. Haha, I'm afraid only he knows about that. Don't worry too much. He might have obtained some opportunity and needs to digest it properly inside. Tianzi Liang smiled and left with his back facing the demon sealing tower after explaining that. The 4 top powerhouses had just gone through a bloody battle. They needed to find a place to recuperate as soon as possible. As for the demon army that invaded the Tongtian Sacred Island, they were wiped out not long after their top powerhouses entered the demon sealing tower. After all, the Peacock Bright Monarch and the other powerhouses could not go up to the 9th floor. Ordinary demons could not fight against them after they came out. The Peacock Bright Monarch did not go far. He and some of the earth powerhouses who had nothing to do waited outside the demon sealing tower quietly. 10,000 years had passed, but the demon sealing tower did not move. 1,000,000 years had passed, but the demon sealing tower still stood quietly in this forest that had recovered its vitality. Chapter 768. Not long after Son of Heaven Liang ascended, the Holy Army attacked the Huamen. Now that the threat of the demons' invasion had been resolved, the Tongtian Holy Island was no longer threatened by the outside world. Naturally, internal conflicts would emerge. As the saying went, a mountain could not accommodate 2 tigers. Originally, the Holy Army was the only top force on the Tongtian Holy Island. Later on, the Huamen emerged as a new force and almost took the throne of the Holy Army's #1 clan. Naturally, the Holy Army would not sit idly by and watch the Huamen continue to develop. In the battle with the Demon Army, the Holy Army suffered great losses. The Huamen did not suffer great losses. However, the Holy Army still had 2 top powerhouses, while the Huamen did not have a single one. What troubled the Huamen cultivators the most was that even Saber 9 and the Shaman King had joined forces with the honorable 10,000 saints and arrived at the Huamen's encampment. There was not much difference in the number of Tongtian powerhouses on both sides. The Huamen even had a slight advantage. However, they lacked four top powerhouses. The Huamin could not resist at all. They could only hide in the 10-terminal formation set up by the sect master. Many Tontian Holy Island powerhouses joined in the attack on the Huamin. The reason the Holy Army joined forces with various forces and powerhouses to attack the Huamin was that the Huamin cultivators and the Huamin sect master had helped the demon powerhouses break the seal around the demon sealing tower's outer perimeter. That was indeed the case back then. However, Shaolin Yu was controlled by the demonly Jia. Unfortunately, the Honorable 10,000 Saints, Saber 9, and the Shaman King would not reveal this fact. Shaolin Yu had not come out of the demon sealing tower after thousands of years. Everyone had reason to believe that Shaolin Yu would most likely not come out. She would either perish together with Xie Wang or be unable to gain the demon sealing tower's acknowledgement. She would be forever trapped on the 9th level of the demon sealing tower. Moreover, even if the Lord of the Huamin could come out, what did the Holy Army have to fear? Even Saber 9 and the Shaman King were involved in this operation, as well as many organizations of various sizes from Skirich Holy Island. Those below immortal level did not need to fear any cultivators at all. The 10-terminal formation was very strong, but it couldn't withstand the continuous bombardment of countless masters. Unfortunately, the Huamin had no leader and couldn't organize an effective counterattack. In the end, the formation base collapsed. If the evil demon Li Jia hadn't emptied the Hua Min's treasury and taken away all the psychic immortal stones, the 10 Extremes formation might have been able to hold on for a little longer. With the last barrier broken, the Huamin had already opened their arms to the ferocious Holy Army. The Huamin cultivators all chose to withdraw from the Huamin. When they had entered the Huamin Island, Shaolin Yu had given them permission to leave. This was something that all the forces on heaven-reaching Saint Island knew. Too many Huamin cultivators withdrew in order to save their lives, causing the Huamin to completely lose their ability to resist. In the end, they collapsed and announced their disbandment. Many cultivators who had sworn eternal loyalty put up a desperate fight and then organized a breakout. However, without the help of top powerhouses, they could only be slaughtered mercilessly. Although the Earth powerhouses were the Huamin's allies, they were too weak to support the Huamin. They could only watch as the Huamin were destroyed. The Peacock Bright Monarch and the other Earth powerhouses knew that they were the next target of the various forces on heaven-reaching Saint Island. They had no choice but to evacuate from the demon sealing tower and spread out to hide. Even if they pretended to be weak and hid, they could not avoid being hunted down by the various forces on heaven-reaching Saint Island. One after another, the Earth cultivators were discovered and killed. The Peacock Bright Monarch had long guessed that the Earth cultivators would become the focus of the various forces on heaven-reaching Saint Island after the crisis of the demon invasion was resolved. This was why he had asked Shaolin Yu to form the Huamin Island. However, he never expected that Shaolin Yu would not be able to come out of the demon sealing tower. In the past, the number one powerhouse on heaven-reaching Saint Island was Tianzi Liang. He had a good relationship with the Earth cultivators, but the Sacred Army waited until Tianzi Liang ascended before making their move. The elimination of the Earth cultivators on heaven-reaching Saint Island was only a part of the Sacred Army's operation. Not long after, the Sacred Army powerhouses began to head for the narrow divine realm. More than 200,000 years later, a large number of Sacred Army powerhouses arrived in the narrow divine realm. In a narrow sense, the God realm also had a magnificent gate, and it was based on a black armored race's ship. Unfortunately, even though the ship's quality wasn't low, it didn't last long against the attacks of the Holy Army. The Huamin cultivators in the narrow divine realm did not have any heavenly ascension powerhouses. Faced with a large number of Sacred Army powerhouses, they could not resist at all. Very few of the Huamin cultivators in the narrow divine realm, as well as the Huamin cultivators who ascended from the lower realm, managed to escape. Most of them were slaughtered by the Sacred Army. Shaolin Yu's sworn brother, Gu Yunfei, also died in the Sacred Army's massacre. Even the family Jiang, who had a good relationship with the Huang Min, was annihilated. Jiang Lanyue's father, Jiang Xingye, was not spared either. The Sacred Army was very ruthless. It was fine if they did not make a move, but if they did, they would not leave behind any future troubles. Among the more important Huang Min in the narrow divine realm, the only one who was spared was Xiao Lingyu's disciple, Yi Qiu. The reason Yi Qiu was spared was not because of his current strength, but because he had already left the Huang Min in the narrow divine realm long before the Sacred Army arrived and headed for the Heavenly Saint Island. Yi Qiu's speed was not fast, and he was traveling the different races of the divine realm, so he did not encounter the Sacred Army. Coincidentally, Yi Qiu left the narrow divine realm after a conversation with Yin Tianzi. As Xiao Lingyu's old friend, Yin Tianzi heard about the existence of the Huang Min after ascending to the divine realm, so he naturally came to visit Xiao Lingyu. Although he did not meet Xiao Lingyu, he did chat with Yi Qiu for a while. While chatting, Yin Tianzi suddenly thought that Yi Qiu must be extraordinary since he could become Xiao Lingyu's disciple. So he made a divination for Yi Qiu, but the result was that Yi Qiu's life would be in danger if he did not leave as soon as possible. Therefore, Yin Tianzi tried to persuade Yi Qiu to leave the narrow divine realm. The reason he used was not the result of his divination, but that Yi Qiu should travel the different races of the divine realm to broaden his horizons, and that he should go to the Heavenly Saint Island to show respect to his master. Even now, Yi Qiu, who was still on his way to the Heavenly Saint Island and traveling the different races of the divine realm, did not know that the Huang Min in the narrow divine realm had been destroyed. But that was not the worst thing. The most hateful thing about the Sacred Army was that in order to truly eliminate the root of the problem, they had once again sent people to the lower realm, not even sparing the descendants of the immortal, devil, and monster realms. The Sacred Army's attack on the Earth lineage was not because of Xiao Lingyu, but because in the ancient times of this universe, the powerhouses of Earth were too powerful. They had offended too many races and factions, large and small. The hatred they left behind was borne by the later generations. Even without Xiao Lingyu and the Huang Min, the Sacred Army would still join forces with the various factions of the Heavenly Saint Island to eliminate the cultivators of Earth. At this time, Xiao Lingyu was also in danger. He did not expect that the glutton would become so bloodthirsty after digesting Xie Wang's energy. After waking up, the glutton's eyes were bloodshot, and his body shone with chaotic light and demonic bloodlight. He did not even recognize Xiao Lingyu and began to hunt Xiao Lingyu down in the large iron coffin. From the looks of it, he really did get rid of the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. This glutton was most likely deliberately placed by the mastermind so that he could kill me at this moment. He predicted that I would let the glutton devour Xie Wang's body, and also predicted that the glutton would become like this after devouring Xie Wang's body. Just like what Xie Wang said, the mastermind has used up all his tricks. Xiao Lingyu could only shake his head and smile bitterly when he figured this out. No wonder he was always able to turn misfortune into blessings for countless years. His luck had always been good. No wonder it had always been so easy for this glutton to increase his realm and could ascend without undergoing tribulation. Even without the glutton, as long as I tried to make the demon ceiling tower recognize me as its master, I would still be trapped in this large iron coffin and unable to leave. Naturally, I would never be able to break through to the immortal realm and would be trapped here forever. In the end, I would be exhausted to death here. Since I started cultivating, I have experienced countless dangers and almost lost my life many times. How could the mastermind have calculated so accurately? If the mastermind's calculations weren't very accurate, then there must be a backup plan. I shouldn't be the only chess piece. The mastermind's plan was nothing more than to trap Xie Wang and lure the evil demon realm to invade. Then, they would exhaust the evil demon realm's vitality so that the evil demon realm would never be able to invade this realm of the gods. With the situation inside the demon ceiling tower, Xie Wang wouldn't be able to escape no matter what. Even without me as a chess piece, the evil demon realm would still invade again. However, they might not have the chance to break through the restrictions around the demon's ceiling tower. Their experts might not be able to enter the 9th floor of the demon's ceiling tower. In this way, the experts of the evil demon realm might not be completely annihilated. It seems like I'm still quite useful. What if I die early? Xiao Lingyu was also confused after thinking about it. Fortunately, he stopped thinking about it and focused on dealing with the glutton's attacks. After devouring Xiao Wang, the glutton's strength had become abnormally strong. Although it didn't use any divine abilities, its speed, strength had far surpassed Xiao Lingyu's. It had probably entered the immortal realm. Xiao Lingyu was definitely not its opponent. Moreover, this glutton had followed him for many years. Xiao Lingyu really couldn't bear to attack it. After being trapped in this large iron coffin for more than 10 million years, Xiao Lingyu's strength hadn't improved by much. He also hadn't figured out the 10th transformation technique. It was just that all the injuries he had suffered before had been completely healed. When he was attacked by the glutton, he was in his peak condition. The glutton was very strong. However, it had already become berserk and had lost its rationality. It only blindly charged forward, using the powerful impact of its body to deal with Xiao Lingyu. Because it was too fast, Xiao Lingyu would always be hit, and his body would always be sent flying. He would fiercely smash into the iron walls of the large iron coffin before falling heavily and continuing to receive the glutton's attacks. For the time being, Xiao Lingyu's life wouldn't be in danger. However, with his injuries constantly worsening, it would be difficult for him to escape death sooner or later. Xiao Lingyu opened his heavenly eye of destruction time and time again, but he still couldn't bear to attack the glutton. He felt that if he held on for a while longer, the glutton might be able to recover. Chapter 769. In less than 1,000 years, Xiao Lingyu's healing pills were all used up. He could only mobilize the natural power in his inner world to deal with the glutton's attack. Under the obstruction of the powerful natural power, the glutton's impact was greatly reduced. However, he could still easily hit Xiao Lingyu. The natural power in his inner world was not endless. There would be a day when it would be exhausted. Perhaps before the natural power in his inner world was exhausted, Xiao Lingyu would die from his injuries. However, when he felt that he was in danger, Xiao Lingyu would launch an attack with the heavenly eye of destruction. This attack was able to repel or even injure the glutton. Just like that, millions of years passed. Xiao Lingyu was already at the end of his rope. He could not hold on for much longer. However, the glutton was still in a frenzied state of killing. Just as the Sacred Army and other forces of Tongtian Holy Island joined forces to hunt down the few remaining earth cultivators, Yin Tianzi, the disciple of Tianzi Liang, quietly entered the demon's ceiling tower. It had been less than 10 million years since Yin Tianzi ascended to the divine realm. However, he was now in the early stage of the Tongtian realm. The reason for his fast cultivation speed was mainly because his cultivation method was too unique. Of course, it was also thanks to the inheritance left behind by his master, Tianzi Liang. Yin Tianzi had just broken through to the Tongtian realm when he entered the demon's ceiling tower and went all the way to the 8th floor. Yin Tianzi's strength was naturally far inferior to that of Tianzi Liang. However, over the years, countless powerhouses of Tongtian Holy Island had entered the demon's ceiling tower's 8th floor. They had almost wiped out all the scattered stonemen powerhouses on the 8th floor, leaving only the 81 stonemen powerhouses in a formation guarding the stairs to the 9th floor. Otherwise, Yin Tianzi would not have been able to go too far on the 8th floor. The formation formed by the 81 stonemen powerhouses was extremely powerful. Unless they used special and powerful treasures, no matter how many cultivators below the immortal realm came, they would not be able to defeat them. Naturally, they would not be able to pass through the formation. Yin Tianzi came here. He did not have any special and powerful treasures that could trap these stonemen powerhouses. However, since he was here, he must have a way. He was more than 300 meters away from those stonemen. He casually took out some stones and began to arrange them. The stone he took out was the same as the stone on the stone golem powerhouse's body. This kind of stone was very easy to find on the 8th floor of the demon's ceiling tower. When Yin Tianzi piled up the stones he had picked up along the way, he began to draw an array diagram in the middle of the pile of stones. It only took him 4 hours to complete the drawing of the array. After that, he began to chant incantations around the piles of stones. The pile of stones began to tremble, and so did the stone man blocking the entrance of the stairs. After a long time, the pile of rocks began to crack, and the stone layer on the bodies of the stone golems also began to crack. Bang! Bang! The rocks in the pile of rocks began to explode one by one, while the cracks on the stone golem's body gradually expanded. Boom! Finally, a stoneman powerhouse collapsed. The moment his body touched the ground, it turned into a pile of scattered rocks. Boom! Boom! The 81 stone golems fell one by one, their powerful and indestructible bodies crumbling on the spot. Yin Tianzi only stopped chanting when all the stone golems collapsed. The piles of stones around him had already turned into piles of dust. Yin Tianzi, with a pale face and a head full of sweat, glanced at the stairs and went up to the 9th floor without adjusting his breath. It was hard for anyone to believe that the 81 stone golems, who were said to be invincible, were so easily defeated by a cultivator who had just entered the ingress realm. Yin Tianzi first adapted to the natural environment on the 9th floor. When he could communicate with it, he flew into the depths of the universe. In the process of flying, Yin Tianzi began to slowly recover his strength. After an indeterminate amount of time, Yin Tianzi finally arrived in front of the large iron coffin. He knew that Shaolin Yu was inside. I hope I'm not too late. I've been cultivating with all my might. Don't blame me if I'm still late. Yin Tianzi sighed, then took out countless bottles and jars, as well as a special red brush. The jars were filled with many kinds of special liquids. Yin Tianzi dipped the brush in some of the jars and dipped it in, then began to draw on the runes around the coffin. After nearly 1,000 years, Yin Tianzi finally finished the last stroke. When he withdrew his hand, the runes on the coffin suddenly flashed with chaotic light, then quickly melted away. After all the runes disappeared, the lid of the large iron coffin left the large iron coffin with a bang. Roar! As soon as the lid flew off, a bestial roar sounded, and the foodie rushed out of the coffin. The foodie's body was still flashing with chaotic light and demonic blood-red light. Shaolin Yu was also brought out by the foodie's neck. Many years ago, when Shaolin Yu couldn't hold on any longer, he used the heavenly eye of destruction to break a scale on the foodie's neck. Then, he took the opportunity to leap to the foodie's neck and stab the wound with the suicide dagger. Then, he gripped the dagger tightly, trying not to let himself fall. The foodie, who had lost its mind and was in a frenzy, could only charge around randomly. It was no longer a threat to Shaolin Yu. If the foodie hadn't lost its mind, with its immortal-level strength, Shaolin Yu would have died in the coffin long ago. Soon, Shaolin Yu saw Yin Tianzi. He was stunned at first, then shouted, "Fellow Taoist, dodge." The foodie was already charging at Yin Tianzi. The foodie was too fast, and Yin Tianzi was only in the ingress realm. Naturally, he couldn't dodge the foodie's charge. In a moment of desperation, Shaolin Yu used the heavenly eye of destruction on the foodie's neck again. Roar! The foodie was in pain. It stopped immediately and held the sky. Along with this long howl, a thick blood-colored mist gushed out from the foodie's mouth and neck wound. Shaolin Yu was blown away by the mist. His suicide dagger was also forced out of the foodie's body. When Shaolin Yu steadied himself and held the suicide dagger in his hand again, the foodie stopped howling. Its body fell to the ground. Shaolin Yu was also panting. He first contacted the Chaos Spectrum and brought it to his side. Then, he walked towards Yin Tianzi. "You open the coffin?" Shaolin Yu asked in surprise. "That's right. I risked my life to save you, Brother Shao." Yin Tianzi nodded and smiled. "This coffin is so special. How did you open it?" Shaolin Yu was still very doubtful. This method of opening the coffin was actually taught to me by my master when he ascended. Yin Tianzi continued, "My master is Tianzi Liang. You should know him. Your master is so unrighteous. If he knew how to open the coffin, why didn't he come to save me earlier?" Xiaoling Yu said indignantly, "Haha, my master had his own difficulties. After all, he was a cultivator who was about to ascend to the upper realm. How could he so easily get involved in dangerous situations?" Yin Tianzi smiled and explained, "If not for the fact that I still owe Brother Xiao my life, I wouldn't have dared to get involved in this mess. After hearing about your situation, I begged my master for a long time before he imparted the method of opening the coffin to me before he ascended. I thought Tianzi Liang was a powerful cultivator. I didn't expect him to be so cowardly." Although it was inappropriate to scold him in front of his disciple, Xiaoling Yu couldn't help but say it. Yin Tianzi only smiled and said, "As long as you're fine, brother." Xiaoling Yu then cupped his fists and bowed to Yin Tianzi, saying, "You're so righteous. Fellow Taoist, you've saved my life again. Thank you, brother." Yin Tianzi helped Xiaoling Yu up and pointed at Fudi not far away, saying, "Something seems to have happened to it." Xiaoling Yu nodded and said, "Back then, I let him devour the evil king's body. In the end, he woke up after sleeping for many years and actually became irrational. He attacked me crazily. If you had come a little later, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to hold on." Yin Tianzi frowned and said, "However, it seems to be waking up again. It must have spat out some evil things just now." Xiaoling Yu used his divine sense to scan Gluttony's body. Seeing that there was no longer any demonic blood radiance on Gluttony's body, there was only a faint chaotic light. He said, "Strange, it must have gone crazy only when it was in the big iron coffin. That's why it couldn't expel the evil things it ate. No matter what, I think there's something wrong with this strange beast. Even if you don't want to kill it, it's best that you don't keep it with you." Yin Tianzi kindly reminded him. To be honest, Xiaoling Yu really didn't want to kill Fudi. If he did, he wouldn't have hesitated to kill Fudi in the iron coffin. After all, Fudi had followed him for many years and fought for him for countless years. Fudi was now extremely weak. Its wounds were still bleeding. After it fell, it kept staring at Xiaoling Yu, looking very pitiful. "Let's not talk about it for now. How do we get out of here?" Xiaoling Yu changed the topic. "There's only one way out, and that's to be recognized by the demon sealing tower and send yourself out." Yin Tianzi shrugged and said, "Last time, I almost got myself killed because the demon sealing tower recognized me as its master," Xiaoling Yu said. "It's different this time. The curse on the iron coffin has been broken. It shouldn't be a problem to make it recognize you as its master again." Yin Tianzi said, "Since there's no other way, we'll have to try." As he spoke, Xiaoling Yu walked to the iron coffin again. Then, just like last time, he released his pure, chaotic divine power to touch the iron coffin. Then, he used his mind to communicate with it. Not long after, the demon sealing tower's spirituality reacted. However, it didn't send out any special waves to scan Xiaoling Yu's body. The iron coffin quickly shrank and turned back into a black iron armor. It automatically put on Xiaoling Yu's hand. Chapter 770. Xiaoling Yu stood where the demon sealing tower used to be, wearing a heavy and sturdy dark iron armor and holding a 9-story tower. With a thought, Yin Tianzi and Fudi were released. The primal chaos spectrum also returned to Xiaoling Yu's body. Xiaoling Yu looked at the vast land of Tongtian Holy Island and felt like he could finally see the light of day again. Since the demon sealing tower was such an important place, there were naturally many people from various factions keeping an eye on it. When the demon sealing tower suddenly disappeared, those cultivators came to check it out. When they saw Xiaoling Yu, their expressions changed drastically. Then, they turned around and left without hesitation, taking out their communication beads. "By the way, Brother Xiao, there's something you might not know. Your Huamin have been annihilated. Most of the Huamin cultivators have left the Huamin, and some of them were killed. Even the powerhouses of your Earth lineage have suffered heavy losses. The Sacred Army and other factions have never stopped hunting them down. Yin Tianzi continued. Actually, I risked my life to save you on the 9th floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower to protect myself. My name is also on the Sacred Army's wanted list. These cultivators are really despicable. Xiao Lingyu's expression darkened, and his tone was filled with murderous intent. Xiao Lingyu originally had no intention of becoming enemies with the Sacred Army and other factions of Tongtian Holy Island, but they had gone too far. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light suddenly descended from the sky and enveloped Fudi's entire body. Under Xiao Lingyu and Yin Tianzi's surprised gaze, Fudi was slowly pulled up by the ray of light and disappeared in the sky not long after. It ascended just like that? Xiao Lingyu was a little surprised, but more than that, he was reluctant to part with it. It already has the strength of the immortal realm. If it wasn't on the 9th floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower, it would have ascended long ago, Yin Tianzi explained after recovering from a shock. It's good that it ascended. It saves me a lot of trouble, Xiao Lingyu said with a complicated expression. I still think that brother, Xiao, should have killed him on the 9th floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower, Yin Tianzi said. Hee, it ascended to the world of immortals, and it's hard to say whether I'll be able to survive the immortal tribulation. Why make things difficult for it? Xiao Lingyu smiled bitterly. Brother, the news of you coming out must have spread. You'll probably be surrounded by a large group of experts. Yin Tianzi reminded him out of goodwill. Even if they don't come looking for me, I will go look for them. Xiao Lingyu said and brought Yin Tianzi into the chaos spectrum. He wanted to use the chaos spectrum's 10,000 times faster time flow to recover. Tens of millions of years had passed in the outside world, but hundreds of billions of years had passed in the primal chaos spectrum. The girls, Sky-Devouring Dragon, and Lil Bing were now standing at the peak of the late stage of Tongtian. Moreover, after such a long time, everyone had also used the long years of comprehension to find their own method to advance to the immortal realm. After all, the cultivation method they cultivated was not as special as the 9 Revolutions chaos formula, so it was easier to extend it. Before and after the Huamin's alliance was established, Xiao Lingyu and Ling had collected countless treasures left behind by the seniors of the Tongtian Sacred Island. They had also obtained countless powerful cultivation techniques and cultivation experiences left behind by the seniors of the Tongtian Sacred Island. These provided a lot of reference and guidance for everyone. It was the most crucial support for everyone to find the way to reach the immortal realm. However, in the chaos spectrum, no one could touch the immortal realm. They had to go out and cultivate for a period of time. However, in this way, everyone would have to face the immortal tribulation very soon. Furthermore, the immortal tribulation was so abnormal. This was what Xiao Lingyu was very worried about. After recovering from his injuries, Xiao Lingyu left the chaos spectrum alone and headed towards the Sacred Mountain. The news that the Lord of the Huamin had subdued the Demon Ceiling Tower quickly spread throughout the Tongtian Sacred Island. The large and small forces that had previously attacked the Huamin were all terrified. When the Sacred Army had organized everyone to besiege the Huamin and hunt down the cultivators on Earth, the Sacred Army had patted his chest and assured everyone that the Lord of the Huamin, Xiao Lingyu, had fallen on the 9th floor of the Demon Ceiling Tower, and there was no possibility of him appearing again. That was why everyone's actions were so united and resolute. However, not only had the Lord of the Huamin appeared now, but he had also subdued the Demon Ceiling Tower. The Sacred Army and other powerful forces might not be afraid of the Lord of the Huamin's revenge, but other weaker small and medium-sized forces were simply unable to face the Lord of the Huamin, even if he was alone. The news of Xiao Lingyu's appearance had also reached the ears of the Peacock Bright Monarch and other powerhouses on Earth who had yet to be besieged. They took advantage of the fear of the large and small forces to quickly gather around Xiao Lingyu. The Peacock Bright Monarch, Shun Gongbao, Jiang Shang, Qi Yu, Ho Yi, and Chang. More and more powerhouses from Earth gathered around Xiao Lingyu. But under Xiao Lingyu's lead, they headed towards the sacred mountain. Even though the sacred army was powerful, the sacred army also frowned when they heard that Xiao Yu was heading towards the sacred mountain. There's nothing to be afraid of. Since he's still on the Tongtian sacred island, it means that he hasn't reached the immortal realm. As long as he hasn't reached the immortal realm, how can he face thousands of Tongtian powerhouses and top masters like us? The Shaman King was very calm. As the powerhouses from Earth gathered around Xiao Yu, many of the large and small forces that had participated in the siege of the Huamin and the pursuit of the cultivators from Earth also constantly moved closer to the sacred mountain. They knew very well that they would only be killed by the master of the Huamin if they were on the same front as the sacred army. After 1,000 years, Xiao Yu was only 10,000 kilometers away from the sacred mountain. Although he was alone, he gave the sacred army a sense of urgency, as if an army was pressing down on them. Currently, hundreds of thousands of cultivators had gathered on the sacred mountain, including nearly 3,000 Tongtian powerhouses and countless holy god cultivators. Xiao Yu was still approaching the sacred mountain with an unparalleled aura that said, "Even if there are thousands of troops and horses, I will go alone." Countless neutral cultivators on the Tongtian sacred island were surprised and impressed. The sacred army and many other large and small forces gathered near the sacred mountain. They were ready for battle and had set up an extremely powerful formation to wait for Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu's formation Dao cultivation base was extremely high. Naturally, he could sense the existence of the formation, which was why he stopped when he was still 1,000 kilometers away from the sacred mountain. "Who dares to come out and fight me?" Standing on the peak of a small mountain, Xiao Yu's voice shook the mountains and traveled thousands of kilometers. There were countless powerhouses around the sacred mountain, including top powerhouses like Saber 9, the Shaman King, and the Honorable of All Saints. However, not a single cultivator dared to step out and fight him. "Who dares to come out and fight me? Who dares to come out and fight me? Who dares to—" Xiao Yu's shout was like a thunderclap that reverberated between heaven and earth. Every time he shouted, the powerhouses standing around the sacred mountain would feel their hearts tremble. His voice was like the ringing of a bell that shook their souls. "I'll go and meet him." The Honorable of All Saints finally could not take it anymore. This was the first time in countless years that a cultivator dared to challenge the sacred mountain. "Let's go together," the Shaman King said. "There's no need to fight him one-on-one. Otherwise, why would we gather so many powerhouses here?" Saber 9 said with a nod, "As long as we can kill the enemy, it's fine no matter what strategy we use. After all, this is a battle of life and death, not a spar," the Holy Army's number 2 powerhouse said. Thus, the 4 top powerhouses of Skirich Holy Island flew through the formation together and arrived at the mountain where Xiao Yu was. When enemies met, there was no need for idle chatter. The 4 top powerhouses stood in 4 different directions and surrounded the small mountain. Seeing the 4 top powerhouses coming together, Xiao Yu was not afraid at all. Instead, a mocking smirk appeared at the corners of his lips. The fact that they had come together proved that they were afraid. As soon as the encirclement was formed, dozens of destructive sword gleams formed above Saber 9's head. The 2 holy army powerhouses each straightened their golden spears, and the Shaman King was already enveloped in a bloody mist. Naturally, Xiao Yu would not sit around and wait for his opponents to attack. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot out like an iron arrow released from a bow. For countless years after the ancient times, there was almost no precedent in the history of Skirich Holy Island for someone to challenge for top powerhouses single-handedly. Just in time, seeing that Xiao Yu was the first to charge at him, the Holy Lord shook his spear and met the attack head-on. The Holy Lord was extremely fast, and his cultivation level was high as well. Therefore, his golden spear pierced Xiao Yu's shoulder in the next second. Clang! There was a sharp sound as the golden spear's spearhead created sparks on the metal armor. Although it was a top-tier heavenly spirit treasure, the golden spear could not pierce through the metal armor at all. Xiao Yu smiled ferociously and grabbed the spear shaft. The vertical eye between his brows opened immediately, and a destructive beam of bloody light shot out. The Holy Lord knew how powerful the heavenly eye was, so he immediately dodged to one side. However, his golden spear was currently in Xiao Yu's hands. If he had tried to snatch his spear back earlier, he would have been hit by the destructive beam of bloody light. After weighing the pros and cons, he could only give up on his prized treasure. At this moment, Saber Nine's dozens of destructive sword gleams, the Shaman King's sorcery, and the Holy Army No. 2's spear gleams all struck Xiao Yu at the same time. However, all they did was send Xiao Yu flying far away. They did not even scratch his skin. With such a battle armor forged from chaotic dark iron, Xiao Yu could completely ignore even the attacks of top powerhouses. He had dared to come alone because of the dark iron battle armor's invincible defense. The 10,000 Saints' Venerable's expression was extremely ugly. They had only exchanged a single blow, and they had 4 top experts on their side while the other party only had 1 person. However, his own treasure had been snatched away, and the other party was unscathed. This was not as simple as losing face. Even though the Holy Lord tried his best to communicate with his treasure with his mind, the golden spear was full of spirituality. It kept shaking in Xiao Yu's hands, as if it was trying its best to break free. Haha, the Holy Lord's treasure is so powerful. Even I'm having trouble controlling it. Xiao Yu laughed wantonly as he withstood the attacks of the 4 top powerhouses. His laughter sounded piercing and full of sarcasm to the enemy's ears. Let's retreat. We can't break through his defense at all. Saber 9 had already flown toward the holy mountain as he spoke. Although the Holy Lord was reluctant, he had no choice but to retreat for now. Haha, you're just a bunch of people who bully the weak. I'd like to see how your formation compares to my 10-terminal formation. Just like that, Xiao Yu grasped the golden spear of the sovereign of all holies and slowly walked into the grand array. Chapter 771. This brat is extremely arrogant. How dare he barge into the formation alone? The Shaman King exclaimed after returning to the sacred mountain. He has the right to be arrogant. That battle armor forged from chaos dark iron makes his defense practically invincible. This formation can't do anything to him. Saber 9 shook his head with a wry smile. This was the first time he had seen a cultivator who could take his destructive sword gleam head-on and emerge unscathed. With his defense and the force of impact, this formation might not be able to threaten him, the Honorable Holiness said. That's not necessarily true. His physical defense is high, but that doesn't mean his spiritual defense is high as well. After all, he's not an immortal level powerhouse. If the 4 of us top powerhouses join forces, along with thousands of immortal masters and hundreds of thousands of holy God-stage cultivators, he might not be able to withstand our spiritual attacks. The Shaman King said with narrowed eyes. We can try that, Saber 9 agreed. I happen to know a technique that can gather everyone's spiritual attacks and launch them together. However, there might be sacrifices, the Shaman King said with a wicked smile. What kind of technique? What kind of sacrifice? The Honorable Holiness asked with a frown. Witchcraft, incantation, soul destruction technique. As for the sacrifices, it won't be too great. I estimate that 200 to 300 immortal masters and tens of thousands of holy God-stage cultivators will be drained of their essence and blood, the Shaman King said nonchalantly. Well, the Honorable Holiness hesitated. This brat is a great threat. We'll do whatever it takes to get rid of him. The Holy Army No. 2 powerhouse said calmly. With his invincible defense, we'll only have a chance of killing him with a spiritual attack. Otherwise, even if he can't do anything to us now, I'm afraid we won't have it easy when his ability improves a little more, Saber 9 added. The Honorable Holiness recalled that his golden spear was still in Saber 9's hands, as well as the latter's mockery earlier. He finally nodded and said, "I'll make the arrangements." Although Xiao Lingyu's defense was invincible and he was not afraid of the formation's attacks, it would still take some time for him to break this formation. While he was shuttling back and forth in the array formation, the Sacred Mountain also began to set up the array formation. Not long after, 300 omnipotent powerhouses and 100,000 Saint God Stage cultivators were selected by the Sovereign of all Holies. Under the guidance of the Shaman King, they arranged themselves in a special formation. The other experts gathered around the Sacred Mountain surrounded the special formation. Everyone sat cross-legged and quietly adjusted their state of mind. The Shaman Kings, on the other hand, used shaman blood to draw a formation diagram in the middle of the formation. Gradually, a sinister formation was formed by the sacred deities and ingress cultivators. "It's done. Open a small door in the formation and let him come this way." The Shaman King clapped his hands and said to the honorable 10,000 holies. The 10,000 saints sovereign did as he was told. He formed a hand seal and sent it into the grand formation that surrounded the Sacred Mountain, causing the formation to surge. Xiao Lingyu, who had a deep understanding of the Tao of formations, immediately sensed the opening of a path in the formation. He only used 10 breaths of time to rush out of the path. As soon as he came out, he saw a demonic radiance flash in front of him, followed by a series of explosions. To everyone's astonishment, the 300 omnipotent powerhouses and 100,000 Saint God Stage cultivators exploded at the same time. Clouds of blood quickly gathered together. At this moment, the Shaman King waved his hand and shot out a flame, igniting the blood mist that was like a red cloud. With shaman blood as the guide, soul extinguishing fire, rise. The Shaman King chanted an incantation, and the experts gathered around the Sacred Mountain began to pour their soul power into the ignited cloud of blood. In an instant, a vast and mighty pressure that shook the heavens acted on Xiao Lingyu. Before Xiao Lingyu could react, he was already enveloped by the ignited blood fog. Subsequently, wave after wave of incomparably powerful spiritual attacks began to surge towards him. Dark green flames burned around Xiao Lingyu's body, but he felt a bone-chilling cold. His golden soul pearl was even trembling. It wasn't that the Darksteel battle armor didn't have the ability to defend against soul attacks, but with so many experts using secret techniques to launch soul attacks, even if the Darksteel battle armor helped Xiao Lingyu mitigate most of the power, Xiao Lingyu couldn't withstand the remaining power. If not for the Darksteel battle armor's help, Xiao Lingyu's golden soul pearl would have collapsed in an instant. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu was actually unable to connect with the primal chaos spectrum. However, just as he was about to collapse, the demon sealing tower automatically appeared and took him into the starry space on the 9th floor. The demon sealing tower's main body stood at the foot of the Sacred Mountain, replacing Xiao Lingyu to be enveloped by the burning cloud of blood. After being in a daze for a while in the starry space on the 9th floor of the demon sealing tower, Xiao Lingyu gradually recovered and couldn't help but feel a little scared. "I'd like to see how many times you can launch such a secret technique," Xiao Lingyu said with a gloomy face. Every time the Shaman King's secret technique was activated, 100,000 sacred gods and 300 omnipotent experts had a sacrifice. Although there were countless omnipotent Sacred Island experts gathered around the Sacred Mountain, they couldn't last for long. Most importantly, when the Honorable of All Saints mobilized the 100,000 sacred gods and 300 omnipotent experts, he didn't tell them that they would lose their lives. However, now that the truth was in front of everyone's eyes, it wouldn't be easy for him to mobilize so many experts to sacrifice their lives. However, when Xiao Lingyu recovered and had the demon sealing pagoda send him out, the dark green blood flames that had originally disappeared actually gushed out from the Shaman King's sleeves, instantly enveloping Xiao Lingyu without the slightest decrease in power. The demon sealing tower automatically activated its power again and took Xiao Lingyu into the starry space on the 9th floor. It seemed that after the secret technique was used, it could be retracted and used freely by the Shaman King. This gave Xiao Yu a headache. Xiao Yu entered the chaos spectrum and asked the Peacock Bright Monarch and other experts on Earth if there was a way to break the Shaman King's secret technique. That secret technique gathered too much soul power. It shouldn't be possible to break it under immortality. The knowledgeable Peacock Bright Monarch shook his head and said, the other experts on Earth were also at their wits' end and didn't know how to break it. Now that Brother Xiao has cultivated his technique to the peak, if he can break through, with the help of the Demon Sealing Tower, he can dominate omnipotent Sacred Island and be invincible. Jiangshang reminded Xiao Yu, the peak of my 9-revolution chaos formula is the limit. If I want to break through, it's harder than ascending to heaven. I've studied it for years and learned from the experiences left behind by countless seniors, but I still haven't found a reliable way to break through. Xiao Yu shook his head and smiled bitterly. Haha, there's no reliable cultivation method in this world. Any cultivation is risky and has the possibility of failure. The Peacock Bright Monarch laughed. Xiao Yu also understood this, but he had done his best to prepare for the breakthrough so many times. However, he didn't know what to prepare this time, which made him feel lost. When his interest waned, Xiao Yu went to the light screen again. The 9-revolution chaos formula should be created by the ancestor of his lineage by comprehending the light screens in the chaos spectrum. The continuation of this technique might rely on these light screens. However, no matter how he looked at it, Xiao Yu felt that he could at most comprehend the realm of chaos from the light screen. He couldn't obtain the guidance to create the 10-revolution formula with just these light screens. There should be other light screens in this chaos spectrum, right? Xiao Yu couldn't help but guess after sitting in front of the light screen for tens of thousands of years without gaining anything. However, he and his friends and family had stayed in the chaos spectrum for countless years and almost went through the entire void, but they still couldn't find any other light screens. This light screen shows the cultivation of chaos. Now that I've completed this cultivation, there should be a new world after it. At the thought of this, Xiao Yu began to use all kinds of methods to blast open the light screen. He even used the heavenly Eye of Destruction, but he could only make it fluctuate violently and couldn't open it. He felt that it wasn't that his attack wasn't strong enough, but that he didn't find the right path. After pondering for a long time, he left the chaos spectrum and returned to the 9th floor of the Demon Sealing Tower. He then began to draw the natural power of this world into his body. He fused his power with the natural power of heaven and earth, then burned it with the Chaos True Fire to refine Chaos Origin Power. After thousands of years, Xiao Yu brought a drop of Chaos Origin Power back into the chaos spectrum and arrived in front of the light screen again. After hesitating for a while, he first sent his friends and family out of the chaos spectrum and asked them to wait in the 9th floor of the Demon Sealing Tower. Then, he made up his mind and blasted the Chaos Origin Power toward the light screen. Just as the Chaos Origin Power touched the light screen, he detonated the Chaos Origin Power. The explosive power of the Chaos Origin Power was truly destructive. It was energy that could form a new world. After the explosion, the light screen still wasn't torn apart, but the power of the Chaos Origin Power explosion was all absorbed by the light screen. Then, a new world began to naturally form in the light screen. Chaos was Taiji. Taiji gave birth to Yin and Yang, and Yin and Yang gave birth to the 4 divisions. All kinds of mysterious chaos laws began to gradually appear on the light screen. When the light screen stopped fluctuating, all the scenes disappeared, and the 8 words disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by 5 big words: eternal life through creation. The new world or door that he imagined didn't appear. Instead, there were only these 5 big words. Eternal life through creation? What does that mean? While he was still in shock, the 5 big words had already disappeared, and the light screen slowly dissipated into nothingness. 10th Revolution Chaos Creation Stage? Creation of nature? Using Chaos Origin Power to form nature and form a world. This is the Chaos Self Stage. Then, The chaos creation stage should be to create this world. How do I create this world? Is it all based on my own will? Am I the master of my world? That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.